Chapter 445 The Primordial Flames. The two primordial flames were hovering in the air next to each other. Victoria could feel the power being radiated by the two flames. Victoria closed her eyes as a wave of golden energy shot out from her. The wave of cosmic energy scanned the room for any traps. The lines on her forehead became darker, seeing the cosmic energy activates no traps. Although the cosmic energy activated no traps, Victoria still expected a trap to appear any second when she was making her way towards the primordial flames. The primordial flames didn't react to the intruders. Victoria was informed that the primordial flames have a mind of their own. In the world there were only 3 primordial flames: Cold Flame, Hell's Flame, and Heaven's Flame. Only a few knew the myth of the existence of the 4th primordial flame, the Dark Flame. Victoria recognized the White Flame as the Cold Flame. A golden layer enveloped both Edith and Victoria to prevent the coldness radiating from the white flames from penetrating their bodies. Unlike the Cold Flame, she felt nothing from the black flames hovering beside the Cold Flame. "How do we take them with us?" asked Edith. She was overwhelmed by the power of the flames. "Do you recognize this flame? It's definitely not the Heaven's Flame, must be the Hell Flame. Let's take them and get out of here before anyone notices our disappearance," Edith said to Victoria. With a nod, Victoria reached out to grab the 2 flames. The golden cosmic energy enveloped her hands as she approached the flames. Victoria felt a sudden pressure pushing her away. The pressure created a force field around the Cold Flame. She gritted her teeth, pushing her hand towards the Cold Flame. "Arg!" She growled in pain, but she was far from giving up. She was using all of her cosmic energy to get her hands on the flames literally. Edith saw Victoria's face start to go pale, and soon, her blood dripped through her nostrils. Still, Victoria was fighting through the force field to reach the flames. The blood spurted out of her nostrils after a few moments. Finally, her finger touched the Cold Flame, and just as her finger touched the flame, it exploded, throwing Edith and Victoria onto the walls behind them. "Arg!" Victoria growled in pain. The entire dungeon shook due to the force of their collision with the walls. When she looked up, her pain disappeared, but instead, a complete utter shock occupied her heart. The flames hovering in the air a few seconds ago were nowhere to be found. The flames just disappeared. She jumped back to her feet. The utter shock was written all over her face. She frantically looked around to locate the flames, but to no avail. Looking for the flames, she walked towards Edith to get her up. "Vicky," Edith stood up holding Victoria's hands. "The flames?" Boom. Before Edith could get an answer from Victoria, the entire dungeon began to tremble. The ceiling above them crumbled, falling down on them. "We have to go." Victoria knew there was no time for them to linger around. Their lives were more precious than the primordial flames. While the dungeon was crumbling like a house of cards, they ran as fast as possible. The flame of anger burned inside Victoria hotter and brighter. If she had absorbed the primordial flames, she and her father would have reached a pinnacle of power sooner than they initially planned. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published _here L-World. Only the primordial flames were powerful enough to be equal to the cosmic energy. That was why her father was hunting for the primordial flames. Absorbing the primordial flames would ensure their everlasting domination. Even though they were running for their loves, Victoria took out the compass that had the ability to locate the primordial flames to find where the flames went. Unfortunately, the compass was broken due to the previous collision. The needle was broken in half and the glass was shattered. Damn it! Meanwhile, in the Black Forest, Gaia injected the antidote into Gilrine to wake him up. Michael and Eladir left the area to resume connecting the Blackfoot mushrooms. "Arg!" Gilrine jolted. He was breathing heavily, and when he saw Gaia squatting beside him, his face went pale. "What happened?" Gaia asked, pretending not to know anything. "Great, I will tell Headmistress Kayla that you were busy sleeping in the middle of the fucking Black Forest." Gaia punched Gilrine on the shoulder. "No, I wasn't sleeping, I saw something. Move your ass, we have to get them back to the castle." Gaia didn't linger around but walked away from Gilrine. Gilrine stared around him with a pale face. He quickly checked his pocket to see if the pouch was still there. He was relieved to find the pouch in his pocket just as he left. He could swear he saw something before he lost consciousness. Once again, before following Professor Steinmeier, Gilrine went to the tree and checked if there was something amiss. Did something happen? Nah, what am I thinking? No one can walk past the headmaster's defenses, Gilrine mumbled under his breath. The 2 girls along with Michael and Eladir were collecting Blackfoot mushrooms when Gaia returned. She had no idea Victoria and Edith almost absorbed the primordial fires. "That's enough," Gaia clapped. "Your detention is over." Let's go back to the castle. On their way back to the castle no one uttered a word. Aladir was staring at everything with an amazing look on his face. Victoria was frustrated by her failure. Edith was pretty shaken up by nearly getting crushed to death. Gilrine was contemplating what just happened back and what made him lose consciousness. And lastly Gaia, she was having mixed feelings. On one hand, she was happy beyond words because of her not-so-dead mother, and on the other hand, she was worried about her mother's safety. Michael's mind was drifting. Many memories he experienced on Earth as Ghost and in this world as Abras flashed across his eyes. Realizing that Abras and he was the same person established a harmony between the soul piece of Ghost and the soul piece of Abras. It was extremely difficult for him to keep calm instead of going berserk. Go to your dorms. After reaching the castle grounds, Gaia asked them to part ways. The latest __sodies are on _the L world. COM website. What about these mushrooms, Professor? Asked Edith. Gaia almost forgot about the Blackfoot mushrooms in her deep thinking. Just give them to Gilrine. Gaia left the students to go to her room. Just like Michael, she also wanted to be alone. Aladir was smiling on their way back to their dorm rooms. The memories of him being a student flooded his mind. He had many happy memoirs in Mazeroth. You're an alchemy student? Even after thousands of years, Aladir still remembered the way to each house's dorm room. I think he'll go to Rinmaster's house. You need some time alone, Aladir said as Michael opened the door to his room. I know the way. Michael just nodded as Aladir turned back and left. When Michael stepped into his room, Nightmare was waiting. Michael did not utter a word. He just flicked his wrist as a punching bag attached to a stand appeared in the center of the room. System, did you know? Michael asked in his mind, standing before the 6-feet punching bag. The system level is too low. His fist clenched as he breathed heavily in anger. The next moment he willed the system to soundproof the room. Nightmare noticed a dim light appear in the room. Skyhall, boom. Michael punched the bag with enough force to create a loud booming sound. Guardians, the punching bag received another hit. Nightmare wanted to ask what happened, but seeing the murderous look and the flickering red eyes, he stayed back. Xianxia visit L world. So for a better user experience, Andreas, Victoria, Thusia. He started to punch faster and faster. The force of his punches shook the room as several cracks began to form in the punching bag. Nightmare noticed the lights in the room go out as the room was soon engulfed in darkness. Let me out, the voice of the third persona sounded in his mind. It was laughing at him, which made him more furious. You can't keep me locked forever. I am you, shut up. Nightmare almost bounced hearing his sudden shout. As Michael was struggling to keep his anger and the third persona contained, Aladir reached the room assigned to Wilkas in the House of Runmasters. The rooms of the Runmasters made alchemy students' rooms look like a shabby basement. The common room Aladir was standing in was a wide, circular room, airier than the common room of Alchemy House. Graceful arched windows punctuated the walls, which were hung with blue and bronze silks. By day the Runmasters would have a spectacular view of the surrounding mountains. The ceiling was domed and painted with stars, which echoed on the midnight blue carpet. There were tables, chairs and bookcases, and in a niche opposite the door stood a tall statue of white marble. Aladir didn't give a shit about the elves and the others' gazes on him. As a dark elf he went through the same bullying as Wilkas. However, unlike Wilkas, Aladir fought back and showed the bullies how it would feel to be bullied with his superior talents. Maggot, filth, why does he have to be a rune master? I thought he stayed with the alchemists? Aladir walked towards the sofa in the center of the room and plunged into the comfy sofa. It had been thousands of years since his butt rested on a sofa. Leaning back on the sofa he put his leg over another. The elves were surprised. They couldn't take him being arrogant in front of them. Filthy maggot from the elven gang, an elf walked towards Aladir with the intention to throw him away. The elves who got their butts kicked by Michael were standing in the corner smiling. He was not in the House of Alchemy but the House of Runmasters. You can find the rest of this content on the L World com platform. They were excited to see the half-elf get beaten. Little did they know that the half-elf they knew was no longer in this world. The one occupying his body was a several thousand years old 6-star Runmasters. Chapter 446 Something that could kill the Dark Lord. Everything has changed except you half-minded idiots. Aladir shook his head disappointedly. He leisurely grabbed the goblet on the side of the table to quench his thirst. The elves were having a bit of a party, so the goblet was filled with red wine produced from the nearby village. Despite the goblet's simple look, it was heavy and imbued with a rune that made the goblet near impossible to break. Ignoring the approaching elf, Aladir took a little sip of wine. His body jolted when the red wine touched his taste buds. I can't say I didn't miss this. Elidor took a long sip and in a few blinks of an eye, he emptied the goblet. You have some bang? The runemasters who were looking at the elf dashing at the half-elf stumbled down. They couldn't realize what just happened. The half-elf was drinking wine, the elf was dashing at him. The next thing they saw was the elf collapse to the ground. Only a few seconds later they noticed the crushed goblet in the half-elf's hand. They finally realized that the half-elf hit the elf with the goblet with enough force to not only knock down the elf but also crush the goblet itself. The amount of force required to crush the goblet was not a joke, yet the half-elf crushed it by hitting the elf in the head. Ark! The elf was grumbling on the ground in pain. He held his head as blood drenched the floor beneath. However, his agony became more painful when Elidor stepped on the elf's throat, increasing pressure little by little. If you assholes want to spend your lives being racist, knock yourselves out. But when I'm here, I don't want to hear a single snarky comment about me or my race. Few of the elves couldn't see a fellow elf being crushed by a half-elf in front of their eyes. Hence they dared to attack the half-elf. Fighting in the common rooms was not a big deal until no one informed the prefects about the fight. They doubted that even if the prefects knew they beat up a half-elf, they would give a damn about a maggot. After all, the prefects of House Runmasters were also elves. Zzzzzzzzz. The elves were a couple of feet away when a sudden vibration reverberated in the room. The elves halted their steps. Their golden hair produced smoke as the smell of burning hair permeated the room. Elidor snapped his finger and the elves began to tremble violently. Their robes smoke as they crumbled down, leaving the elves naked. Their golden skins soon turned as red as ripe tomatoes. Visit Elworld. CDOM for the best no_understreet_Xianxia experience. The other runemaster witnessing the scene with startling faces looked down to see a glowing chakra on the floor where the elves were standing. When did he place the rune? What rune is that? So powerful, how did he do that? The onlookers were stunned beyond words. Elidor snickered inside, seeing how a basic level rune could surprise these amateurs like this. The energy in his soul deteriorated over the years, and once a half-immortal stage cultivation was now a mere body-refining stage cultivator. Until Elidor could cultivate to become stronger, he would only be able to use mediocre runes. Nonetheless, these basic runes were enough to keep the elves from annoying him in his time at Mazeroth. Next time, he'll burn the thing between your legs. Elidor threw aside the goblet before making his way towards his room. The elves who were being electrocuted collapsed to the ground finally when Elidor snapped his fingers again. Now someone shows me my room, he evilly grinned, which sent a chill through everyone's spines. Somewhere else on the Azer continent, Noah was trekking through a snowy mountain. As far as one could see, there was nothing but milky white snow and crystallized ice pikes that were sharp as daggers. The howling sound of the wind was the only thing that accompanied them, while the blowing wind brushed past their bodies with enough force to knock them down at any moment. Arg, I miss flying, Noah sighed but kept trekking through the snow, and I miss a roof above my head and something that saves my Harry but from freezing. The golden Babaru, Norvin, curled up inside Noah's inner pockets. The monkey made a comfy home of his long coat's pocket but still bitched about the weather. You should have brought Alicia instead of me. She must have loved being literally cold. We are close, Noah. Andreas' voice sounded in his head. Shoo, Noah shushed Norvin quickly. The old man inside the ring talking to you again? Norvin rolled his eyes, being annoyed by getting shushed. Full undersirkernerjanavel on Elworld. Seat Oam. Apart from Noah, Norvin was the only one who knew the existence of Andreas. Just like the dragons, Norvin's race, the golden Babarus also possessed the skill to view the world differently. After Norvin reached the core formation stage, he sensed a living being in Noah's ring. His suspicions were confirmed when Noah was stuck in an unwinnable fight and Andreas had to manifest to save him. Conjure the heavens flame. Hearing his mentor's voice, Noah closed his eyes as an emerald green flame shot out of his hand. The green light lit their path. Look, Norvin quickly pointed out at the runes on their path to the top of the mountain. We are on the right path. Andreas was excited. It was the first time he sounded excited since they found the location of the Dark Lord. The failure to apprehend the Dark Lord still haunted both Noah and Andreas. They were so close to capturing him, yet he outsmarted him by using Noah's family as hostages. What happened that day made Noah realize what the Dark Lord was capable of and the necessity to eliminate him. What they were seeking could help in doing just that. They followed the runes to the top of the mountain. Noah climbed the mountain with new vigor, seeing he was close to the weapon that could slay the Dark Lord. Tell me why we can't fly up again? Asked Norvin, feeling tired just by seeing Noah climb the mountain. Using arch energy will activate the traps. Noah answered while climbing higher and higher. The higher he climbed, the colder it got. The runes led him to a dead end where he saw nothing but a stone wall in front. I thought a door or a pathway would appear. Norvin rubbed his hairy chin. Teacher, Noah called out Andreas standing in front of the wall where the runes are glowing. These are Lady Xianxia's runes, there is no doubt. Andreas' ethereal figure manifested out. While Andreas was studying the runes, Noah conjured a ball of heaven's flame and sent a stream of emerald green flame towards the wall. The wall didn't open as Noah expected, but a bright beam of light shot out within the wall toward Noah. Noah's instincts made his legs dash out of the way, yet the bright beam was too fast and Noah was standing too close to the wall. Unexpectedly, the bright beam of light shot through Noah, doing no harm to him. The god of light, a sweet feminine voice echoed through the snowy mountain. The showering snowy rain stopped all of a sudden as though someone pushed the pause button. The mountain before Noah slowly split open to reveal a grandiose hall. Noah stepped into the hall as the mountain closed up behind him. The 11 braziers on each side of the hall lit up, brightening the hall. A snowy white carpet materialized under Noah's feet to the end of the hall as he cautiously took his steps forward. There were 4 12-feet statues made of ice stood majestically. 2 of the statues were female while the other 2 were male. Despite their gender difference, the 4 of them looked extremely dominant and mighty. Who are they? Asked Norvin in amazement. Updated_@Elworld. The 4 great legends. Norvin saw Andreas' ethereal form bow towards the statues. His eyes were full of reverence as though he was worshipping them. Archer Crook, Ingrid Stenham, Chiojin and Karjan Pavlovich. Archer Crook, the heavenly warrior. Andreas looked at the statue of a man in battle armor. He was holding a sword in one hand and a spear in another. Andreas turned his gaze to the statue of a graceful smiling lady who held a tiny bonsai tree in her hand. Ingrid Stenham, the legendary 6-star alchemist. Her talents were beyond any star levels. The legend has that a drop of the healing potion brewed by her could heal an army to their full health. He turned around to look at the statue of a long-haired muscular man with a hammer, Karjan Pavlovich. The only human 6-star blacksmith this world has ever seen. Finally, they all turned their eyes to the statue of a lady in Qipao. Her hair was tied into a bun and unlike the rest of the statues, she was looking at the stone table at the end of the hall. Xianxia, the woman who saw the future, the mother of the great prophecy. Noah was surprised to see Andreas kneel down in front of her. We won't fail you, Lady Xianxia, Andreas said, letting out a deep breath. After saying those words, the trio cautiously walked toward the stone table. They expected to spring a trap any second, but they never did. When they reached the stone table, they saw 2 hand imprints on the table. I have a feeling you 2 should place your hands on the marks, Norvin exclaimed. Andreas and Noah looked around. There was nothing except statues and the stone table in the hall. Shall we? Noah believed those who were called him here, they had no intention to harm him. If they had, they would have done it by now. Therefore he placed his hand on the stone table and so did Andreas. Nothing happened for a moment, but soon, the hall trembled as they noticed the heads of the 3 legends slowly turning towards them. From each of them, a bright beam of light shot out at Noah. Finally, a golden light shot out from Xianxia's statues. When the 4 light beams met at the center of the stone table, the same voice they heard before sounded again. Find the other 4 arrows and vanquish the darkness. From the 4 lights emerged an arrow that radiated an immense amount of power. The arrow was made of no metal but light. Noah gently grabbed the arrow, and the moment he touched the arrow, it disappeared into him. He sensed the arrow within him in a form of energy. Visit Elworld.com for a better user experience. We are one step closer to ending him, teacher. Noah grinned. Chapter 447 The Dark Lord from the Future. The next day, Gaia attended the combat class only to see Michael absent. Elidor was there, sitting on the last bench as Wilkas. For Gaia, what Eldari revealed was joyous news to be celebrated. After all, she had learned that her mother is still alive. But for Michael it was devastating. Everything he knew and experienced turned out to be a sham. His entire life was controlled by a prophecy he never wanted to be a part of. In a short amount of life, he had faced so many betrayals, and even worse, betrayal by his own family and the girl he loved, Victoria. She knew how he was feeling, a puppet, a boogeyman created by the Sky Hall. If he was what they claimed, he wouldn't have saved her, Raylene, Christopher, and revived a dying sect to live. Regardless of his intentions, he saved more people than a typical guardian. The thought of Sky Hall and the Guardians pushing him on the path to become the Dark Lord and dictating his life pissed off her. He always acted calm even when the odds were against him, which happened rarely due to his caution and plans. She wasn't sure how he had been reacting. Her mind was boggled on her way to his room. Since she sent all the students including the alchemists out on training, no one saw her entering the House of Alchemists. Her heart was pounding faster and faster as she got closer to his room. Sigh, standing in front of his door, she took a deep breath. She rotated the wedding ring on her finger nervously. The room was ominously silent. The thought of him leaving her flashed across her mind, almost making her eyes water. She didn't know why she thought that, but the thought did come across her mind. Her hands shivered, moving towards the doorknob. When she finally opened the door, she was thoroughly shocked. She just stood in the doorway dumbstruck. Michael was doing push-ups rather than being sad or gloomy. The other surprising thing was he had the Lucifer armor on an armor stand. His naked upper body had smudges of black paint which indicated he had been painting the armor and modifying it. "Hey gorgeous," she saw him jump back on his feet. He walked to her with a wide grin on his face, wrapped his hand around her waist, pulled her closer and locked her lips with his. For a man who should have been gloomy, he was way too cheery. "Hey human. What's going on?" "I've been busy modifying my armor and training," he flexed his muscles. Under normal circumstances, she would have gawked at his chiseled body with awe. He went back to the armor and attached the hidden blades to the sleeves. Michael, she was confused. She expected anything but this. He was so cheery than usual. "I was thinking that I should remove the cape." Gaia saw him rubbing his beard doubtfully. "Visit to L-World. COM discover _new novels. Are you gone mad?" His behavior creeped her out. Yesterday he was so gloomy and silent. She was afraid that too much anger and sadness muddled his brain. Michael smiled, brushing the dust off of his armor. "What do you mean I was?" "Stop looking at that fucking armor and talk to me." She stomped the floor. Michael turned his gaze at her. A gentle smile appeared on his face. With a worried look on her face, Gaia walked to him. Her eyes expressed the concern in her heart better than her words and face. He cupped her face, gently kissing her forehead. "I was mad to try to run away from my destiny, Gaia. I always thought Lucifer is the mask and Ghost is real. But no, yesterday I realized it was the other way around." Michael let her face go to put his hand around her neck. He walked towards the windows with Gaia. "Every time I put on the armor, I say to myself, this has to be done to make my life easier. The desire to control the world from shadows was just a fantasy of mine." He paused for a second as the doom suddenly grew darker. "Now I realized it wasn't a fantasy, it was my destiny. Even after learning everything about the Order, the prophecy, what the Guardians did, I tried to run away from my destiny. I wanted to change it. But dread it, run from it. Destiny arrives all the same." Gaia sensed an otherworldly aura from him. Even the breathing became harder as she felt like being choked by the aura. "You're acting weird, Michael. You're not the Dark Lord they claimed you to be. You're better than that, I know you. If anyone is evil, it's the Sky Hall and Guardians. I am the Dark Lord nonetheless. Why try to avoid who I really am? If they had left me alone when I was born, I might have lived and died as an ordinary person. But they showed me the path to become something more, a god who could reshape this world to his own liking." The fear shrouded Gaia's mind as the light in the room continued to flicker. Soon the room fell pitch black. Manipulating the darkness was not a skill or spell he bought from the system. Rather, he felt as natural as breathing. His strength had gone through the roofs and he sensed that he would be more powerful if he merged with the third piece of the soul. Just making peace with himself unlocked an ancient power in him. When the lights returned to the room, Gaia was staring at him with a pale face. _chap_ers or pub_list on L-World. Don't worry, Snakey, this is what the future me wants." Michael smiled, looking at the distant horizon. When he saw her face, confusion was written all over her face. "Think about it, Gaia." Xianxia went to the future and saw the Dark Lord. "And who is the Dark Lord?" "Me." "You heard Eladir. I beat her to half-death but didn't kill her. That doesn't sound like me unless I let her live." "You're saying you came from the future? It makes sense, doesn't it? How we met, the portraits of me in the dark forest, how I met Nightmare. Don't you feel like everything is connected? I don't care where you came from or from when you came, he'll be at your side as long as I'm alive." "What if your family gave you away?" "Am all the family you need?" Gaia embraced him in a tight hug. She squeezed him, having no intention to let him go. Knock, knock. Gaia jolted away from him when someone knocked on the door. "It's me, can I come in?" Eladir's voice came from the other side of the door. "Come in," said Michael as Eldari opened the door to come in. "Am I interrupting something?" Seeing the half-naked Michael and the tense body of Gaia, Eladir thought they were exploring the area of love together. "Nope. Did you find everything you need?" Eladir walked towards the armor of Lucifer hanging on the armor stand. He just looked at it from top to bottom before turning his gaze back at Michael. I had to go through some annoying conversations, but I managed to get everything. Now we just need a vessel and someone who could weaken the vessel with your soul piece in it. The latest studies are on the world. Xenoam website. With a flick of his wrist, Michael took out a tablet-sized mirror from the system storage. He threw it at Eladir. There is your vessel. Eladir looked at the mirror to see a mountain troll in it, but this mountain troll was nothing like the one he scared using his energy a day ago. The mountain troll in the mirror was on fire and had a pillar with scorching hot lava oozing down. A fire giant. Eladir had seen only a few in his lifetime. They were extremely rare and almost extinct from the world thanks to the Skyhall. They were one of the races Skyhall deemed as helping the Dark Lord. Thus, they almost wiped them out from the face of this world. A fire giant, you say? That thing crawled through a ruin far north from here, relatively closer to where we went to collect Blackfoot mushrooms. Gaia took the mirror from Eladir's hand and saw the fire giant sleeping. The snoring giant was a couple of times bigger and meaner than the mountain troll Gilrine loved. We will let the fire and ice battle it out. In 2 days, I want my soul to be whole again. The ritual to extract the third piece of soul out had to be performed on a full moon day. Fortunately, the next full moon was in 2 days. The fire giant's appearance was not a coincidence but a result of Victoria's visit to the dungeon. She killed everything that guarded the dungeon except the fire giant. When the primordial flames left the dungeon, they woke up the slumbering giant. The giant was now tracking the primordial flames. Michael was oblivious to the intention of the fire giant. His first priority was to make his soul whole. He had a feeling that once his soul became whole again, his powers would grow exponentially. What's the plan? Asked Gaia. I will lure the fire giant to the ritual site. You make sure no one plays hero. Michael then explained the full extent of his plan to Eladir and Gaia. After hearing the plan, Eladir was quite surprised. The plan was simple but elegant and fail-proof. Slowly Eladir realized why a legend of a person such as Xianxia shuddered to even utter his name. He had devastating power and a brain to outsmart his opponents. This was a deadly combination. Moreover, his soul seemed to be in peace unlike when he first met him. What's the plan after you absorb the third piece? Asked Gaia. Try the L world. Seat OM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Farming badass points, Michael thought in his mind but only revealed a smile to Gaia. Chapter 448 The Alchemy Class and Bullies. Only 1 day remained until the full moon. To farm badass points and brew a potion that would attract the fire giant to the ritual site, Michael went to the potions class. Lucky for him, today was the first day of potions class. Potions lessons took place down in one of the dungeons. It was colder in the classroom than up in the main castle and would have been quite creepy enough without the pickled animals floating in glass jars all around the walls. The classroom was large enough to hold at least 30 students, their cauldrons and their work tables. In the corner of the classroom was a basin into which icy cold water poured from a snake's mouth. A student supply cupboard could be seen in the room, along with a blackboard on which the professor could write formulae and recipes for potions and pills. Professor Lane's office and personal stores were adjacent to the potions classroom, and there was a room in the corner to access the office from the potions classroom. Michael felt weird carrying a set of books like a student. When he entered the classroom, he noticed that not only the classroom was gloomy but also the students looked gloomy. None of them dared to utter a word. As he liked, he went to the table at the far end of the corner from the professor's table. A copper cauldron along with a yellowish parchment laid on the table. Hey! A brown-haired youngster next to Michael's table waved at him with a friendly smile. Since the youngster was sharing his table with orcs and beastmen, he seemed to be glad to meet a fellow human. Michael just nodded with a smile before reading the contents written on the parchment. Healing potion recipe. Michael immediately recognized the ingredients and what potion could be brewed using these ingredients. Another batch of baffling bumbling fools, a cold voice reverberated in the classroom. The students saw Professor Lane walking out of the door connecting the classroom and his personal office. Professor Lane Voldegard was a tall thin man with pallid skin, a large hooked nose, and a pearl-white set of teeth. He was dressed in flowing black robes which made him resemble an overgrown bat. He had shoulder-length, smooth black hair which framed his face in curtains, curling lips and dark, penetrating eyes that resembled tunnels. When he entered the classroom, the already gloomy classroom turned gloomier. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published _here L-World. You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of alchemy. As there is little fancy spell casting here, many of you will hardly believe this is sorcery. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through the veins, bewitching the minds and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bewitch minds, turn water into gold, and even stay young forever if you aren't as big a bunch of fools as I usually have to teach. He sounded more like hissing than speaking. He had a waspish tongue that subtly spewed so much venom toward the students. In the very first class he started to pour water over the students' fire to learn more. On your table there is a list of ingredients. You have 30 minutes to concoct the pill. Whoever concocts the least bad will get to use the classroom after the class. I know it will be hard for you, but try not to make a mess. The students rushed to all corners to collect the required ingredients. No one stopped for a second to look around the classroom to locate the ingredients instead of rummaging through all the jars and plants. Let me show you kids how it's done. He was in dire need of badass points, which pushed him to show his greatness to everyone. When he first came to Mazeroth, he planned to stay anonymous, find the Dark Elf and get some allies. Everything changed after he talked to Eladir. He was neck-deep in enemy territory. Although it was risky to show his true prowess, this was also a great place to earn thousands of badass points. Lane misdirected the students by saying concoct the pill. In reality it was a potion. He wanted the students to figure it out. Looking at the students running around the classroom like headless chickens having no clue, he was disappointed but didn't seem surprised. He seemed as though he expected this. Among the headless chickens, Lane noticed Michael, who calmly walked around the classroom collecting the right ingredients using the correct methods. His blank face literally turned green when Michael conjured his alchemy flame in the middle of the class. The gloomy dark classroom was lit green by the fuming emerald green flames hovering over Michael's palm. "What the hell are you doing?" One female student who dropped her ingredient in shock shouted at Michael. Ignoring the girl, he threw the first ingredient into the alchemy flame. Professor Lane fixed his eyes on Michael. Unlike the students, he could see the control Michael had over the flames. The flames danced according to his will. One by one Michael threw the ingredients into the alchemy flames. He walked towards Professor Lane, brewing the potion. The essence extracted from each ingredient hovered over the flames in the shape of glowing pearls. Finally, the sweet sound of notifications continuously rang in his mind. Whoa, full underscore new underscore episode underscore on the L world. C-O-M platform. Who is he? He's not even using a cauldron. Look, he's almost done. Where is he from? The students were dazzled by Michael as he wanted. Even Professor Lane, who had a face void of emotions, looked a tad bit surprised. When he reached Lane's table, he held the flames and the essence balls in one hand and took a vial from the table using the other hand. The green flames slowly dissipated as the beads of essence flowed into the vial, blending together into a sparkling blue potion. Here you go, Professor. 90% pure healing potion. Michael placed the vial on the table with a proud grin. The classroom is yours. Others leave. Professor Lane left the room carrying the vial of healing potion Michael brewed. The students looked like fools with some ingredients in their hands. They did not even start their cauldrons yet Michael finished brewing the potion. Their first potion class ended quicker than they thought. After Lane left the classroom, all the students stared at Michael. Big brother, the girl who shouted at Michael approached him wearing a seductive smile. That trick doesn't work on me, sweetheart. Michael put an end to her flirting before it even began. If I heard the professor correct, he said everyone to get out of here, full underscore current underscore novel on L world. See, by giving the classroom to him, Lane saved hundreds of badass points. He could take advantage of the ingredients around the classroom to brew the potion to lure the fire giant to the ritual site. Seeing how coldly he handled the girl, the other did not dare to start a conversation with him. They branded him as the most arrogant one in the class within a few seconds. Michael couldn't care less about what they think of him. Most of the students here would serve the Sky Hall or any one of the great clans. Sooner or later he might meet them on a battlefield. The last thing he wanted was to share his knowledge with his potential enemies. The ingredients to brew the bait potion were quickly found by Michael. He quickly started to brew the potion before Professor Lane returned. While collecting the herbs, he also collected seeds from the rare herbs Professor Lane had in his classroom. Michael did not linger in the classroom longer. As soon as he finished brewing the bait potion and some other potions and pills, he left the classroom. He had combat classes and spell casting after alchemy. However, since he finished the alchemy class within 5 minutes, he had some free time. The class was profitable as he earned almost 50,000 badass points. Still not enough, Michael sighed. He took a loan of 100,000 and before he could start spending the points, he wanted to settle his debt. I should go see how Nightmare is doing. When he stepped out of the classroom, he remembered Nightmare. The dragon was having his own classes with the magical beasts professor in the arena. With the help of a few markers, Michael made his way to the arena. The corridors and the courtyard were peaceful and captivating. He would hate to destroy this place if Mazorth chose to go to war with him. Somehow he felt they would stand in his way to domination. The path to the arena was adorned with yellow maple trees. The paved path was blanketed by the golden leaves and looked as though they were covered in pure gold. Michael was enjoying peace and tranquility. The arena was an oval-shaped pitch with hundreds of seats raised in stands around the pitch so the spectators were high enough to see what was going on. In the middle of the arena was something that resembled a cricket pitch. Currently, when he entered the arena through one of the many gateways, he saw countless creatures flying in the sky and running around the grass field. Try the L-World. Xiom platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. A group of students occupied the seats at the north end of the arena. Michael's face turned cold when he looked closer at them. Instead of flying in the sky or running around like the other dragons and the familiars, Nightmare was chained to a pole with a bunch of SPHYNX cats. Besides Nightmare and SPHYNX cats were a few first-year students. The first-year students seemed to be swimming on the ground. The group of students was adorned in the robes of house warriors. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that the first-year students in Nightmare were being bullied and ragged. Chapter 449 Spellcasting Class. Although Michael saw Nightmare being bullied, he didn't intervene. He just turned and left the arena, but not before taking a long look at the bullies. 4 guys and 1 girl. The one who seemed like the leader of the group had wavy red hair, tan skin, a lean body, and a cobra tattoo from his neck to his left ear. Leaving the arena, he went to the spellcasting class, which was conducted by Professor Neil. The spellcasting classroom had 3 rows of desks, all facing the teacher's table, behind which sat a large throne-like chair with a high back. 2 blackboards flanked the teacher's table, and behind them was a small shelf with books and other objects, beneath a pair of windows. The spellcasting classroom was smaller than the alchemy classroom but brighter in lighting and atmosphere. Students were happily chatting with their friends and looking forward to their first spellcasting class. Considering all the students had to take the spellcasting class, all the alchemy students were present in the class. When Michael entered the class, all their eyes fell on him. The alchemy house mostly consisted of humans and orcs as well as a few elves. The elves who were sorted into House of Alchemy were deemed inferior by the elves who got sorted into House Warriors or House Runemasters. Unlike the humans in the alchemy class, the orcs looked at him with a sense of respect. The orcs who sat on the last bench moved aside to make space for him. Edith noticed the change in the alchemy students' faces when Michael entered the classroom. Her train of thought was stopped as Professor Neil suddenly appeared in the middle of the class. Professor Neil was the polar opposite of gloomy Professor Lane. He was wearing a neatly pressed coat suit that was tailored for him by the best tailors in the Ukulun realm. He looked charming and lively, wearing a bright grin from ear to ear. Though he had a few strands of gray hair among his raven black short hair, his vigor and liveliness blanketed his true age. "Welcome to your first spellcasting class, dear students." "Why so serious?" Professor Neil's voice softened. "Say good morning like there's no tomorrow." "Good morning." The students cheered thunderously. His fusion stage level 8 cultivation earned him instant respect from the students. Professor Neil waved his hand as the blackboards flanking the teacher's table merged into one long board. "All of you have cast spells in your life at least once. You're familiar with them, right?" Professor Neil looked at the classroom as the students nodded their heads. "You can find the rest of this content on the Nell World COM platform. So tell me, what is a spell?" Edith quickly raised her hand. "Yes, Miss 45. The whole class including Michael stared at Edith. "A spell or an incantation, a charm, an enchantment or a bewitchery, is a magical formula intended to trigger a magical effect on a person or objects using energies found in the world. The spell can be spoken, sung, or chanted." "Wonderful." Professor Neil bowed towards Edith as the whole class chuckled while Edith just bowed back embarrassedly. As Miss Talented 45 said, a spell can be spoken, sung, or chanted. "But what about this?" Professor Neil swirled his fingers as a mini cloud appeared above their heads. A streak of lightning flashed across the classroom and hit the table on which Edith was sitting behind. Edith almost jumped back in shock. A beautiful blue Ross emerged from the place where the lightning hit. "Look at that, a pretty flower among gorgeous misses." Professor Neil winked at Edith and Victoria. Edith returned his wink with an awkward smile, but Victoria outright ignored him. Anyone with 2 eyes could see Professor Neil was extremely flirty. With his cultivation stage and handsomeness, It was obvious he had been with more ladies than bees in a hive. I didn't speak, sing, or chant, but still I cast a spell. It's a chantless spell. An elven girl raised her hand. New novel understanders are published here. World. See another beauty with a knack for knocking down my questions. Professor Neil kissed his palm and blew it as rose petals materialized in the air and flew towards the elven girl. There are two kinds of spell casting. The ones we cast by speaking, chanting, or singing have no special name, it's just called spells. But the ones we cast without doing the above mentioned has a special name, chantless spells or chantless spell casting. Professor Neil wrote the word chantless spell casting on the board in stunning handwriting, but you might be tempted to say my fusion stage cultivation allowed me to cast chantless spells. That's not true. Any one of you could cast chantless spells if you are talented enough, which brings me to my next question. What did I mean by talent? He looked at the classroom for a few moments but none answered. All of you are extremely talented, that's why you've been selected to enroll in Mazeroth. But what made you different from those who did not get into Mazeroth? The answer is your soul and Bodhi's ability to process the energies within you. That's what made you different from the others. That's what talent is. Your body and soul take in a higher amount of energy compared to the others. The more energy you take in, the faster you climb the higher stages of cultivation. Yet, one's soul remains a constant, but the body is the variable. In a few blinks of an eye, Professor Neil drew the anatomy of the human body perfectly on the board. The soul cannot be polluted, unlike the body. If you don't take care of your body, your ability to absorb energies from the world will be hindered. This is the reason why most of the cultivators avoid eating meats, drinking booze, and bed run-of-the-mill strumpets. Some of the male students chuckled, winking at some girls. The more talented you are, the higher the chances for you to cast chantless spells. Make no mistake, you can cast any spell without chanting if you mastered the chantless spell casting, except. Professor Neil paused as his voice turned into a whisper. He moved his hand to write two words on the board: elemental manipulation. Until recently, the concept of elemental manipulation was kept hidden from the outside world due to various safety reasons. I don't know what changed, but I was asked to give an introduction to elemental manipulation, though even I know only a little about it. Michael's interest in the class just got piqued by Neil's words. Every time he controlled the darkness, he wondered what kind of power it was. He hoped the system would give him an explanation, but the only explanation he received was how he should focus on upgrading the system to the next version. Elemental manipulation is just as the name suggests, the ability to control one of the 5 elements: water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, and light. Michael frowned as Professor Neil did not mention the element of darkness. Professor? Edith raised her hand. What about darkness? Isn't that also an element? Visit World. Seat OM for a better user experience. Michael appreciated the girl's question. He noticed an acute change in Neil's face. Darkness is not an element, Miss 45. Where there is no light, there is darkness. Darkness cannot exist without light, and unlike light, there is no source for darkness. In simple words, darkness is just the void of light. Michael wasn't very convinced by his explanation. It sounded like Professor Neil was reciting the answer he got from someone else. However, it was neither his place nor the time to prove that darkness is indeed an explanation and he was the source of it. The scholars in Sky Hall believe that when you learn and focus on spells of a particular element, for example fire spells, the keyword is might. You might grasp the concept of elemental manipulation. However, it's just a theory and it will remain as one until we find someone who could manipulate an element. Michael was sure that Noah would be able to manipulate light, and something told him that the girl who killed the mountain troll might be able to manipulate an element, namely water. Now let's move on to the categorization of spells. Who can tell me how we can categorize the spells? Yet again Edith raised her hand. Yes, Miss 45. Common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. Right again? Miss 45, are you gunning for my job? Neil laughed, making Edith blush. Now most of you might think that legendary spells are the top dogs. But it's not always true. Let me give you an example. Think of a perfectly healthy baby and a weak old man. No matter how hard the baby tries, the baby won't win a battle against the old man even though he's weak. What's the connection, you ask? Neil asked the class. In this scenario, the baby is a starting stage cultivator with a legendary spell and the weak old man is a later stage cultivator with a common spell. The power of the spell depends on the cultivator and the cultivation stage. Many rich people go crazy for legendary spells and pay millions, but they don't understand that they should invest that money to climb the higher stages of cultivation. Without a strong cultivation base, even if you have several legendary spells in your arsenal, a cultivator with a strong base could defeat you with a simple common spell. By strong cultivation, I meant you must be at least at the soul refining stage to unleash the full potential of a legendary spell, full undersrow current novel on L world. See no one. Professor Neil then went on and on explaining each category of the spells to a great extent. Michael almost felt sleepy. After 40 minutes, except for Edith and a few girls, almost the entire class was droopy. With this we will wind up our class. In the next class ID try not to make you all sleepy. Now run along before Professor Steinmeier starts to look for you. Trust me, that won't end well, Professor Neil chuckled before waving his hand. The next moment he disappeared from the classroom. Michael had a feeling that Neil got a taste of Gaia's attitude. He was the first to leave the class, and on his way to the combat class, he contacted Gaia to do him a favor. Chapter 450 Bullying the Bullies. The combat class was changed from the combat classroom to the arena where Nightmare was bullied an hour ago. The students made their way to the arena in groups or couples. Only Michael walked alone until Eladir joined him. Do you have any idea why we are having the class in the arena? Eladir asked, though he seemed to have guessed Lucifer had something to do with this. You will see. While they were on their way to the arena, the students looked up at the sky to see flocks of various magical beasts descending towards them. Not all the magical beasts were able to fly, as there were several magical beasts running towards them too. One of the familiars among the familiars in the sky was Nightmare. Due to Wilcast's poor status, he did not have a familiar. Only a few students lacked families when they reached Mazeroth. Even among countless students, Nightmare located Michael and landed on his shoulder. How was your training, Nightmare? Asked Michael, pretending he didn't see Nightmare earlier. He kept his face straight. Anything special happen, Nightmare? He asked Nightmare. Even Eladir, who was several thousand years old, did not notice the cold intent in his eyes. No, Nightmare lied. For a moment Michael felt extremely annoyed and aggravated by the lie, but when he saw the eyes of Nightmare, he calmed down. He understood why the dragon was lying to him. Nightmare would rather face his own problems than adding them on top of Michael's. Gaia was standing in the center of the arena, sharpening the long sword in her hand. She and Nightmare bickered and fought almost every day, but both of them loved the other dearly. Hence, when Gaia heard about Nightmare being bullied by a bunch of humans, she was royally pissed. If it wasn't for Michael, who convinced her to stay put, she would have kicked the life out of the bullies in the name of punishment. Line up. Her shout sent chills through their spines. They quickly formed a line. Gaia flicked her wrist as a stack of silver coins materialized beside her. With another flick of her wrist, she sent a coin towards a student and their familiar. The students gawked at the floating coins in front of them with bewildered faces. What the fuck are you looking at? Take them. The students and the familiars grabbed the coins. At the end of this class, whoever has the most coins will get this. A silver parchment appeared in her hand. A rare level spell. She threw the parchment on the ground. New novel underscapers are published here. L World. That's it? A cocky human student from House Warriors snickered. You can rob, attack, do whatever you want. And House Warriors, she looked at the students who were in Warrior House robes. If you get your asses kicked, don't even bother coming back. Now shoo, she gestured at them to go away, but not before taking a long look at where Michael was looking at the bullies. The students immediately scattered in all directions. Most of them chose the Black Forest as their destination. The Black Forest would provide them with much-needed cover for them to safeguard their coins. Many who were not warriors knew they would be decimated if they went against the warriors or runemasters. Hence, hiding was their only choice. Victoria dashed in the direction of the Black Forest. She wasn't running but chasing her prey. I thought you don't care about stuff like this, Edith asked while running behind Victoria. I don't, but I'm not gonna be bested by a bunch of clowns either, she said, targeting a dwarf who was running as though his life was depending on the coin. Boom. The dwarf was extremely unlucky as he was targeted by Victoria. Like a cheetah that pounces on its prey, Victoria leaped at the dwarf. The dwarf barely looked up when he felt a sharp pain on the back of his head. Victoria took the coin off of the dwarf she just knocked down. On her way to the Black Forest, she collected several more coins. Edith might not be fighting like Victoria while running, but once she reached the Black Forest, she was confident that she could trap the students with her runic traps and collect more coins. A forest like the Black Forest was a natural playground for a runemaster like her. She was a 4-star runemaster, and according to her big sister, Layla Alden, she was just a few years training away from reaching a 5-star level. It took the duo 15 minutes to reach the border of the Black Forest. They entered the woods cautiously. Edith touched the trees as she followed behind Victoria. Every time she placed her hand on a tree, a palm-sized chakra appeared on them and disappeared into the tree. Shoo! Suddenly Victoria stopped on her path. There's someone ahead and he was getting surrounded by 5. Victoria sent waves of cosmic energy to scan her surroundings. She cautiously moved in the direction of the 6 students. With a swift leap, she landed on a nearby tree branch to get a good view of the scene. Edith bent her hips, drawing a symbol on the ground beneath her feet. Then when she jumped, the symbol glowed, boosting her leap. When she landed beside her friend Victoria, she saw a familiar face standing in the middle of the forest. A crimson-scaled forest dragon was resting atop his shoulder. That's our trained neighbor, full naval on L world. Siom, my, what do we have here? All of a sudden a cocky voice reverberated in the forest. Edith and Victoria turned their gazes away from the alchemist to see 5 students of House Warriors step out of the shadows one by one. They flanked him in all directions. Hey, look at that, it's our toy. The red wavy-haired youngster pointed the stick in his hand at Nightmare. An alchemist? This is pathetic. Edith saw a pale-skinned girl lick the tip of her blade. I think we should let the dragon see its master getting the end of our boots, another youngster coldly said. How low can they stoop? Seeing 5 warriors surrounding an alchemist put a frown on Edith's face. I'm going to help him. Edith took a step forward only to be stopped by Victoria. That's not our business. If he can't save himself, he should have been at least good at hiding. I can't stay here doing nothing when someone's being bullied in front of my eyes. Edith's whisper turned colder, as expected. Just as she was about to jump down, they heard the alchemist calmly speak. Nightmare, who was resting atop Michael's shoulder, began to shiver. He was struck by nervousness. When they began to bully him, he could have simply told either Gaia or Michael and they would have dealt with them. But he restrained himself from doing that to avoid causing them an extra problem, as Nightmare knew they were dealing with enough problems as it is. However, sensing the cold intent in Michael's voice, Nightmare realized that he might know everything. Bullies stick together, huh? Michael cracked his knuckles one by one. If there is a forest, Edith heard him and was surprised by his calmness despite the tricky situation he was in. Lion, tiger, dragon will prowl to hunt for their prey. The prey will run for its life. Victoria looked him in the eyes and saw no fear, not at all. But if the sun sets and darkness descended by then, the animal which will survive to watch a new dawn would be decided only by the nature. He rolled up his sleeves gradually as he spoke. But in this jungle, when the darkness falls, when, where, and who will watch the daybreak won't be decided by nature. Finally, Michael cracked his neck. This time, the murderous intent in his eyes was visible to everyone, including Edith. The aura he radiated rendered the warriors speechless. It's me. Victoria was surprised at the speed of his dash toward the red-haired youngster. The warrior barely had time to move a muscle when he received a punch that sent him flying onto the tree behind him. For more _novel, visit L World. The rest of the warriors were stupefied by his speed. Before they could react, Michael had once again dashed at the red-haired student. He was growling on the ground. Suddenly his growl turned into a scream of agony because Michael mercilessly stomped on the bully's kneecap, shattering it into pieces. While the youngster was screaming, crying, and growling beneath his feet, Michael turned back. The other 4 warriors were dashing at him put a sudden break when they saw his cold gaze landing on them. An unexplainable fear clutched their hearts. They were warriors and they shouldn't have felt afraid in front of an alchemist, but they did feel afraid. He made only a few moves, but they were enough to reveal his battle prowess to Victoria. He didn't seem like a normal alchemist to her. For the first time in her life, she slightly felt curious about a guy. The red-haired youngster screamed yet again as this time, Michael stomped on his other kneecap. Although the student could be healed with a healing potion, the pain he was feeling right now would be ingrained into his brain forever. If he felt an urge to bully again, this pain would kill that urge. What have you done? You? The girl stood closer to Michael, shivering. Their leader was just crushed in a few mere moments. If they could use spells, they would fight fearlessly. Since that was not the case, they all started to tremble, and the red-haired youngster's cries didn't give them any courage. Regardless of her gender, Michael picked her as his next target. Plop. Edith closed her eyes the very next second after he slapped the girl with enough force to create a mini shockwave. Unlike the red-haired youngster, she immediately lost consciousness as well as a few teeth. Nightmare supposed that he should feel pity for them, but he felt nothing for these bullies. Michael tilted his head, grinning at the 3 remaining students. I thought bullying the weak got you off. Victoria was looking at the alchemist beating the crap out of the 3 warriors with mild interest. The trio ganged up on him, still they could not even lay a finger on him. Each of his moves was precise, deadly, and straightforward. Except for the girl, he broke several bones of the others. The girl forced open her eyes gradually at the wrong possible time. Arms or legs, you can only pick two bitch. Nightmare wanted to stop, but looking at the murderous look in his eyes, he knew it was too late to stop him. _new_episode_ on the L world. COM platform. He was just a few meters away from the girl when Edith landed right between the girl and Michael. It's enough, Edith stomped the ground. Chapter 451. Gaia is fired. Just like Victoria scanned her surroundings, Michael also performed the scanning. The only difference other than the obvious energy difference was Michael sensed the two girls' presence way before Victoria sensed him. He let them see the one-sided brutality to earn badass points. As he expected, he earned quite a lot of badass points. Since every single one in Mazeroth was either genius or celebrity, his badassery earned tons of badass points. Because of this theory, he didn't think deeply about the two girls' identities. Miss 45. Michael lowered his sleeves down. Something tells me you are not here for my coin. Edith was stunned by the sudden change in his demeanor. A few moments ago he was coldly breaking the bones of his fellow students, and now he was smiling warmly. I was foolish to think you needed help. How could you do this? Edith's eyes watered looking around. Their cries and agony softened her already soft heart. Thank you for your kindness, Miss 45. Now if you step aside, I have a bitch to deal with. Michael looked at Nightmare standing atop his shoulder and saw his worried face when he was being bullied. That scene kindled the rage in his heart. If he was outside, he would have killed the five by now. The least he could do was break a few bones, and that was letting them off easily. No, Edith stomped the ground again. This time, the ground beneath him trembled as translucent chakras appeared behind her. But the chakras quickly disappeared as soon as they appeared. Human, we have a problem. To his surprise, he heard Gaia's voice in his head. You can't take their coins, but I won't let you harm them any more than you have already. Edith's voice turned colder. I couldn't care less about these coins. Michael took the 2 coins from his pocket before throwing them at Edith's feet. It was him who asked Gaia to assign them this task so he could follow these bullies and teach them a lesson. He had no interest in winning. For their medical expenses, with a snicker, he turned his back on Edith. Before leaving the scene, he looked up at the tree Victoria was standing on. Victoria felt his gaze on her for a second. She was sure that he looked directly at her. She was hiding her presence as well as her body, yet he sensed her through all the foliage, darkness, and the trees. She was surprised by him. This _content is taken from L World. Don't quickly. Nightmare jumped down from his shoulder while transforming into his real form. With Michael on his back, Nightmare took off into the sky with a powerful flap of his wings like a bullet from a gun. The arena was just a few minutes flying away from the Black Forest. With Nightmare's speed, they reached it in 2 minutes. As he landed in the arena, he saw several students as well as a silver horse with 2 feathery wings, protruding out of its back, slacking on the ground. A youngster who looked like the embodiment of the word warrior was talking to Gaia, and by the redness and the stiffness of Gaia's body, it seemed like they were having a heated conversation. To be more precise, Gaia seemed to be having a heated conversation while the youngster looked calm and composed. Elliot Watson. Michael recognized the youngster as the head prefect. When he first came to Mazeroth Castle, he met the head prefect along with 3 other students. He wondered why he was here and what he did to make Gaia's face become as red as a ripe tomato. Soon he noticed a golden parchment in her hand. 2 classes, and you've put the student's life at risk in each class. I heard you the first several times. What made you fucking qualified to tell me how to do my fucking job? Michael joined the group of students staring at the ruckus to hear her shout. She noticed Michael but didn't acknowledge him due to obvious reasons. I'm qualified and have the authority to take back your job. Michael was stunned. You have endangered the lives of the students enough, and the way you've been treating them is not the way a house warrior teacher should. You have a week to vacate the premises. Good day, Miss Nayla Steinmeier. Elliot adjusted his spectacles before jumping back on his horse and flying away. What's happening? Aladir came to his side with a grin. In his hand, he had a pouch, and by the clicking sounds coming from the pouch, Michael could see they were coins. Class dismissed as well as the professor. Few elves chuckled among the group. Not only the elves but also the students of other races too looked happy and wore bright smiles on their faces. The alchemists were the ones who seemed most relieved. Ex-professor, the elves continued to laugh among themselves. Gaia left the arena before she lost her patience and broke the faces of those who were laughing. Try the L World. COM platform _ for the most advanced reading experience. Back in Michael's room, a 7-foot mirror had erupted. In front of the mirror stood Aladir, Michael, and Nightmare. So these spiders capture the feed in real time and project it through mirrors? Aladir was curiously staring at the spider on his palm. I can enhance them by increasing their speed, durability and prevent them from getting detected by some of the powerful arrays. Although they were made of junk metal, there are some arrays that could still detect their presence. Is this thing working? Gaia appeared in the mirror while Eladir was fiddling with the spider. She was poking the spider and seeing her face up close put a smile on Michael's face. Was funny. She was currently standing in a cozy room with a fireplace and comfy sofa. There were several portraits of the founders of Mazorth hanging on the wall behind her. The room, however, was a mess and he noticed the broken table lying in pieces. Yes, I can see you now. If you step back, you will be able to see us too. Michael talked to the spider floating in the air in front of him. Since meeting Gaia in person would raise unwanted suspicions, he used the spiders as web cameras and initiated a video call using the devices he built. Tell me what happened, asked Michael. Didn't you see? I was fired. That son of a bitch evoked some idiotic rule to fire me out of my job. We are less than 16 away from starting the ritual and I have already lost my job. What are we gonna do about it? I do vaguely remember something about in the event of a professor abusing his or her power to endanger the lives of their students, a secret vote can be held by the head prefect and if the vote passed against the professor they will be stripped of their job. But to evoke the rule, take the vote and fire you from your post within 2 days is quite a feat. Dark Queen, Gaia rolled her eyes seeing Eladir praising Elliot. We will proceed as we planned. It's too late to back off now. After we make my soul whole again we may not even have to be here. Eladir, you sure you can modify the teleportation scroll to teleport us out of here? Already finished it. Just say the word and the 4 of us will be out of here before one could say cheese. Michael wanted to say he was surprised but he expected this from a 6-star runemaster who was several thousand years old. He had the knowledge and skills to open the gates to Earth and for a runemaster with his caliber, it would be simple enough to modify a teleportation scroll. The girl, will she be there? Our whole plan depends on her showing up to battle the fire giant, Gaia asked. She didn't give a damn about being a professor. The only thing she cared about was the ritual that was supposed to happen tomorrow. No matter what happens they have to go through with the ritual. The sooner his soul becomes whole, the better. Gaia knew this. The ritual was extremely important and that was why she was royally pissed at Elliot for getting herself fired. Full_new_episode_ on the L World. See the OM platform. Don't worry. She will come. After discussing their plan for a few more minutes, Michael cut the call. He then took out a muddy brown potion from the system storage. Nightmare, he called Nightmare as the little dragon came flying to him. Take this, he handed over the potion to Nightmare. It's your task to spray this potion in the air and lure the fire giant to the ritual site. They picked up a secluded site in the middle of the Black Forest as their ritual site. It was far from the Mazroth castle yet relatively closer to the fire giant. According to Eladir, the ritual might last from 1 hour to 3 hours. The first step of the ritual was to extract the soul piece that Michael named as the third persona. The second step was to cage the soul into the fire giant's body, thus giving the soul piece a physical manifestation. Then the third and most difficult step of the ritual was letting Rowena defeat the fire giant but not kill it. She had to weaken the giant so Michael could absorb the soul back at its weakest state. In its weakest state, it would be merged with the other 2 soul pieces and if everything went according to their plan, his soul would be whole once again. As they were finalizing their plan for tomorrow, Gaia's doors were knocked on by an unexpected guest. Gaia was irritated by the fact she got fired and moreover, the guy who was responsible for it was stronger than her. It was embarrassing for her. After diligent cultivation she just reached core strengthening stage level 4. However, Elliot was at soul refining stage level 2. Only if I went through my metamorphosis. Damn it, knock. 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 Her train of thought was interrupted by a knock on her door. She cast a quick spell to spread her senses. When she sensed the one who was knocking on her door, she was surprised. It was an extremely powerful presence, a presence of a fusion stage cultivator. New novel _chap_ers are published here, L World. COM. She was surprised and startled more than she was annoyed. With utter caution she slowly approached the door. When she opened the door, a man clothed in dark robes resembling an overgrown bat stood at her doorstep. Professor Lane? Chapter 452. The ritual has begun. Professor Lane entered Gaia's room without bothering to ask her permission. He gawked at the mess in the room but didn't seem like he gave a damn. Yeah, come in. Gaia rolled her eyes. How do you like your job back, Miss Steinmeier? Professor Lane asked in his waspish voice. Huh? Gaia was confused. I have a task for someone with your caliber, Miss Steinmeier. Accomplish this and you will be Professor Steinmeier. Before Gaia could say anything, she had a feeling that she should hear him more. After all, she needed to pretend as she cares about this job to avoid raising suspicions. She was really lucky whatever spell was cast on her when she took the identification card of the real imposter of Professor Steinmeier was powerful enough to fool even the fusion stage cultivator such as Lane. Otherwise she would have probably ended up in the deepest dungeons of Mazeroth. I have a week to get out of here, Professor Lane. So whatever's in your mind dash. If you depart now, you can finish it before tomorrow night. He stared at Gaia wordlessly asking for her answer. What's the job? Gaia asked, sighing. Escorting a student in and out of a dungeon? A dungeon? Gaia's curiosity was slightly piqued because dungeons are rare, but every dungeon would contain a priceless artifact or a relic worth risking their lives. If a dungeon was found, it would cause a ruckus among cultivators. Soon the dungeon would be filled with adventurers, rogue cultivators, sects to loot everything inside. Anything that could be found in a dungeon would be extremely valuable. However, as much as the dungeons contained valuables, they also contained danger in every corner. If 100 people entered the dungeon, only a few would come outside fully intact. The task seems extremely dangerous, Professor Lane, especially for the student. If you tell me more about the dungeon and what it contains, I might take the task. After all, I want all the information I need before risking my life. Being alive is more important than being a professor. Fair enough, Professor Lane nodded. He almost looked like he was expecting everything Gaia just said. For more under novel, visit World. Calm, primordial fire. A single word that came from Lane's mouth was enough to make her shudder. The last time she witnessed the power of a primordial four was when she was in the fire realm. Noah used Heaven's flame to save the old man from House Fisher. The flame was powerful enough to obliterate even the extremely powerful poison miasma in the fire realm. According to the text she read in the Nagaland library, the primordial flames would grow stronger with time and enhance the spells and skills one possessed. She also heard from Michael that he needs a primordial flame to reach the 6-star alchemist. That's what's inside the dungeon along with skeleton soldiers. Wait a minute. If that's what's all in the dungeon, why didn't anyone get it? So what's the catch? Gaia was not dumb enough to believe that there was primordial fire sitting in a dungeon, but no one in the Aculon realm had taken steps to get the fire for themselves. The dungeon is protected by a void array. Even a half-immortal would be rendered powerless the moment he or she steps into the dungeon. Which means only a battle-hardened warrior can get in and out alive. Something tells me countless battle-hardened warriors had already tried that and didn't live to tell the tale. Gaia emphasized the word battle-hardened, crossing her arms. Lane was annoyed by all the questions, but he never showed his emotions on his face. After all, he needed her to do his bidding. With a flick of his wrist, Lane conjured a purple flame above his palm. Unlike the normal flames, primordial flames have a mind of their own. If the primordial flames deemed you unworthy when you try to absorb them, you will be reduced to nothing but ashes. He threw the purple fire onto the broken table behind him. In mere moments, the oak table turned into ashes as he said. Gaia was surprised by his theatrics as he had no need to turn the table into ashes. I assume you want to know who is the student you have to accompany? Gaia nodded in curiosity. She derived a bunch of plans to get rid of the student and sneak Michael into the dungeon instead. The student has the ID 66. Weirdly, he chose to go by the name Ghost, and where he came from. Gaia received yet another shock from Professor Lane. He is an alchemy student, probably a prodigy. He may have a chance to absorb the primordial flame without being obliterated by it. She sensed no remorse or nothing at all in his voice. What if he was deemed not unworthy by the flames, which she didn't believe would be the case? If anyone was worthy of the primordial flames, it was him. I can get him in, and if he survived the flames, I can get him outside. New novel understanders are published here. World. Great. Use this when you are within 3 feet of him. You will be teleported directly into the dungeon's entryway. He will have no choice but to see it till the end. He talked while walking towards the door to leave the room. Just before stepping out of the room, he handed over a golden teleportation scroll to Gaia. He did not even bother to ask if she was going to agree or not, as he knew she had no choice. What if that head prefect asshole tried to get me fired again? Next time, not every professor will sign the petition. By the time his voice reached her ears, he already vanished into thin air. Then she realized that if what he said was true, all the professors signed the petition, including him. This meant he manipulated the entire scenario just to get her to agree to the task. She even doubted he may have been the person who initiated the plan to get her fired in the first place. However, instead of punching something to vent her anger, she burst into laughter. Professor Lane may have felt like the mastermind, but only she knew who was the real winner in the situation: Michael. Lady Luck was on his side, that Gaia knew for sure. The only thing that bugged her was in less than a day, they had the ritual to put his soul back together. Although they were talking about the ritual and how to perform it, they had no idea how it was going to go. To be honest, she was worried sick, but she didn't let Michael see her anxiety. In the serenade of the black, the stars were a choir. They were lights that sing in infinite patterns. Sometimes eyes needed music, and the darker the night the sweeter the song. Amid the starlight was the ever-glow of the moon, that mother of the sky who watched over every beating heart, steady and true. Despite her angelic moonlight that bathed the planet with sapphire light, the black forest remained dark. The thousands of years-old trees shaded the ground with their ever-expanding canopy, preventing any light from cutting through them. Nothing was audible except for the sound of snoring in the distance. In the middle of a large glowing chakra stood Michael, Gaia, and Eladir. "The fire giant is still sleeping, I guess," said Eladir. "When should we do this?" Nightmare flew back to Michael after surveying the surroundings. "I just need your blood." Michael walked towards Eladir and took out a dagger from the system storage. The next moment, he cut open his palm as blood gushed out, dripping onto the glowing chakra. When the blood touched the chakra, the glowing blue chakra turned crimson red. "Step to the center and the ritual will begin." Eladir's voice turned serious. The usual calmness in his voice was nowhere to be found. Gaia was slightly shaking seeing Michael taking steps towards the center of the chakra. "Nightmare now. Lure the fire giant here," Eladir ordered Nightmare. The dragon quickly nodded his head before flying in the direction of the fire giant as fast as he could. Full_current_novel on L-World. Gaia threw the bait potion into the air, which was caught by Nightmare in midair. Boom. When he flapped his wing, it produced a quiet booming sound. She had never seen Nightmare fly so fast. Everyone was nervous, including Eladir, despite his calm demeanor. "Please come back to me in one piece, human," she whispered to him. She prayed to her mother with her hands against the chest. Regardless of the situation, when he warmly smiled at her, she calmed down. All of a sudden a thunderous roar echoed through the forest, almost breaking their eardrums. The shout was soon followed by thunderous footsteps. The ground beneath them shook. "Manual soul extraction is initiated. Arch energy flow has been stopped. Prepare to go through an extreme amount of pain. System offline in 3, 2, 1. Michael's outcry in pain sent a chill through Gaia's spine. She dashed towards him in instinct to save him, only to be stopped by Eladir. The ritual must not stop. Eladir and Gaia saw the blood gushing out of Michael's nostrils and mouth as he collapsed onto his knees. He howled at the sky like a wolf in pain. His soul was literally being stripped out of him. The pain he suffered could not be described in mere words. Everything in his being hurt. His head hurt, his chest hurt, his feet hurt, and every single fiber in his body screamed in agony. The pain subsided at times, only to flare up several times more intense than before. He held his head tightly, trying to fight through the pain. It was difficult to focus between the moments of pain and the voices telling him to stop what he was doing, but he pressed onward. But he felt sore all over. The ritual was taking its toll on his entire body more than he initially expected. However, his anger and pain in his heart offered him the strength to bear the pain. His mind and body told him to give up, but the anger of being abandoned and caged for something he never even did fueled his willpower to get through the ritual. Gaia's worried look took a turn to worse when she witnessed a smoky figure emerge from Michael. It was appearing and disappearing from his body as though it didn't want to leave his body. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published _here, L-World. Zidon, the figure was screaming, but she never heard the screams. "The broken piece of the soul," Eladir explained in utter shock. As a scholar specializing in souls, this was the first time he had seen such a phenomenon. Witnessing the power being radiated by the soul piece truly frightened him. Chapter 453. The Possessed Fire Giant. Even when his pain was killing him from within, Michael's brain still functioned, telling him not to scream no matter what. If he were to scream before the fire giant reached the ritual ground, it would prematurely attract the girl, or worse, a professor. The fire giant's scream sounded closer and closer. He could feel the ground beneath him tremble violently. How long does he have to go through this? He could vaguely hear Gaia's outcry, "Run!" Nightmare shout sounded in his mind. With great difficulty he looked up. His vision was not as clear as it used to be a few moments ago. The X-ray vision, the arch energy, and the strength he possessed were nowhere to be found. It made sense as the system informed him that his arch-energy flow had been interrupted. He was in a most vulnerable position. If anyone chose to attack him, he would be defenseless. Even a foundation-stage cultivator with a dagger could end his life, let alone a fire giant of soul refining stage level 8. The girl who slew the mountain troll was at fusion stage level 2. If his guess was correct, the fire giant would reach the fusion stage after merging with the third piece of the soul. Grrrr. He felt a scorching hot smoke brush past him. The splitters came flying from the broken trees, causing several cuts on his face. His blood slowly painted his face red. What stood before him was a fire giant standing over 5 meters tall. It was a thick-limbed humanoid with deep crimson-red skin. Its eyes were sunken into their sockets, glimmering in golden yellow. The giant's hair resembled fire, disorderly with streaks of orange and yellow, whereas its claws and teeth resembled fire-blackened steel. Despite their physical form, fire giants possessed the intellect of a human. Hence, when it saw glowing crimson-red chakra, the giant realized that it stepped into a trap. However, instead of backing off, it charged forth, targeting Michael. Now release. Aladir shouted the moment the giant stepped into the chakra. The shout was directed at Michael and he knew it. Argt. His scream was ear-piercing. The sound-absorbing array Aladir absorbed the scream and prevented anyone from the castle from hearing it. The human part of his scream quickly turned demonic. No. A demonic voice shouted within him. It rendered everyone, including the fire giant, stunned. Powerful sound waves shot out of Michael and pushed everyone around him several steps backward. Aladir was dazed by the power. Something little such as a shout contained enough force to crush a body-refining stage cultivator. He could not even fathom the power he would possess after reaching his full potential. Steady herself, she saw an ethereal figure resembling Michael's Lucifer form arising from within. This _ content is taken from L-World. Sedome, get. Michael grabbed his head as blood started to seep through his eyes. For the first time he saw the third persona manifest. A ghostly chain was still connecting the both of them. Michael grabbed the chain as his lips curved upwards. Out. He crushed the chain, finally releasing the third persona out. Now. Michael vaguely heard another shout from Aladir. But this time it was directed towards Gaia. The longbow and arrow materialized in her hand and both of them glowed brighter and brighter, radiating immense power. A web of tiny symbols could be seen on her bow and the arrow. The runes Aladir placed on the arrow would boost the arrow's power. Although the arrow wouldn't be able to kill the fire giant, the arrow would temporarily weaken it. In the weak state, the third piece of the soul would be sent into the fire giant's body relatively easily. Otherwise, the fire giant's body would explode due to the power of the soul. You imbecile. Gaia saw the ethereal figure scream at Michael, trying to reach him, whereas the glowing chakra began to rotate faster and faster. Boom. The arrow fired from Gaia's bow broke the sound barrier. In a blink of an eye, the arrow went straight through the fire giant's chest. Grrrr. The fire giant's shout sounded quieter than they expected. From the wound caused by the arrow, a bubble of blood dropped onto the chakra. The next moment, a powerful gust of wind knocked down all the trees in the 5-meter radius. It didn't stop with a gust of wind, but the rotating chakra created a mini typhoon. Every tree, splinters, log, and object in the vicinity got pulled into the typhoon. Nightmare felt the pull, but he managed to fly to Gaia using all of his strength. Gaia, on the other hand, held onto a tree with all her might. Aladir managed to stand still without being pulled by the typhoon using a rune. No. The third persona screamed again. Little by little, it got pulled towards the fire giant. Michael's vision gradually blurred until he saw nothing but darkness. Try the L-World. Com platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Human. Gaia shouted when she saw Michael collapse onto the ground. On the other hand, the fire demon's golden eyes turned pitch black. Away. Aladir raised his hand at the fire giant. A golden chakra shot out of Aladir's hand and flew towards the fire giant. When the fire giant and the golden chakra clashed, a bright beam of golden light exploded. Their eyes were made to close by the brightness. When they opened their eyes, the fire giant along with the crimson-red chakra on the ground and the typhoon disappeared. Gaia finally fell to the ground. The moment she hit the ground, she rushed towards Michael. She slid through the mud and splinters to reach him. She picked up his head and put it on her lap. Nightmare landed beside him with his 2 eyes welled up with tears. He's not breathing. Gaia shook his body. Ghosty Nightmare scratched his arms with his mouth. Now it all depends on the girl. Aladir sighed, looking at the distant horizon. Somewhere else in the Ukulun realm, a giant palace was floating above the clouds. The palace was basking in the light of the full moon. This was the residency of the Holy Maiden, the Ice Palace. As the name indicates, the palace was made of nothing but pure ice. Only the Holy Maiden could inhabit such a harsh environment. In the center of the palace, where the snowy mist was covering as far as an eye could see, Rowena was meditating. Her eyes opened abruptly as they twinkled like sapphires. "Fire giant," she mumbled. In a few moments, another figure came running to Rowena. "Holy Maiden, a fire giant has appeared in the Black Forest," Bai Ning exclaimed. Rowena already stood up, the icy swords attached to chains materialized in her hands. There was no door in the palace. She just walked towards a wall, but the wall split open as she approached. "Holy Maiden, we need a plan of attack." Bai Ning tried to stop Rowena from blindly rushing into a battle. At first, when Bai Ning sensed the fire giant, its power was over the roof. The fire giant was unusually powerful, and that was what made Bai Ning worried. "I have a plan." "Attack!" Rowena shot out through the hole, breaking the sound barrier. Visit to Overlord. Discover_new novels. Her figure disappeared into the clouds while Bai Ning followed her behind. The old woman could barely keep up with the Holy Maiden. Order Mazroth to stay away from the fire giant. It was the last thing Bai Ning heard before Rowena's figure completely disappeared from her sight. Rowena was flying like a bullet towards the Black Forest. She spread her senses to locate the fire giant, and it only took a second to pinpoint its location. The fire giant was wreaking havoc in the Black Forest. It was destroying every tree and everything in its path. Rowena increased her speed. She had sensed the unusual power radiating from the fire giant, yet it didn't stop her. The arch energy radiated from the fire giant was fluctuating. One time it was at fusion stage level 2 and another time it was at soul refining stage level 10. She was slightly stunned in midair when the fire giant directed its gaze at her and talked like a human. The fire giant now possessed by Michael's broken piece of the soul threw its fist at Rowena. Covering her fist with chilling ice, she met the fire giant's fist with her fist. Boom. The moment their fists collided, it produced a powerful shockwave that decimated everything in a 20-meter radius. The ancient trees exploded into million pieces. Rowena landed on the ground comfortably while the fire giant stumped back several steps. Rowena cracked her knuckles. The fire growled angrily before steadying itself. There was at least 10 meters distance between them. For a few seconds, neither of them made a single move as they just stared at each other. Regardless of her puny form, the fire giant did not dare to underestimate her. After all, the soul piece posing the fire giant was part of Michael and inherited his intellect. Therefore, instead of rushing into the battle like Big Dumb, it looked around, planning in its mind. In Rowena's mind, she had gone through hundreds of scenarios of their battle. Although she won the battle in many of the scenarios, she still didn't underestimate the fire giant because of two reasons. First, she had no clear idea about the fire giant's abilities. Of course, she studied about the fire giant, but something told her that this fire giant was different from the one she read about. The second reason, the energy being radiated from the fire giant wasn't purely arch energy, it was something much more powerful. Try the Overlord. Platform_ for the most advanced reading experience. After several moments of staring at each other, they finally started to run toward each other. From the distance, Victoria and Edith were looking at the fire giant along with all the other students. Every single one was woken up by the sound and came to the balcony to witness the battle. Unfortunately, they could only see the head of the fire giant but not Rowena due to the physical forms. "Let's dance!" With a battle cry, Rowena jumped into the air, raising her fist. Chapter 454. The cold flames. A trail of icy mist could be seen appearing around Rowena. On the opposite, the fire giant left a trail of blazing fire. It was not only the fight between Rowena and the fire giant but also the battle of ice and fire. The frost blades disappeared from her hand as she threw her fist to meet the fire giant's fist. Boom. The shockwave shot out from the collision of their fist destroyed everything around them. The fire giant was pushed back several feet but Rowena remained still. She cracked her knuckles and then her neck just like Michael. "Something is controlling the fire giant," Rowena mumbled. The oversize of the fire giant put the third persona at a disadvantage. To harm Rowena, it needed to land a hit on her, but before the giant could raise his fist, she could hit the giant several times. Therefore, the third persona changed the battle tactic. Just like before, the fire giant moved toward Rowena, seeming not to have any battle plan. Rowena remained still, waiting for the fire giant to punch her. However, when she was waiting for the fist, a beam of light shot out of its eye. Rowena was caught off guard by the sudden beam of fire. It was so quick, lightning quick. Many students watching the giant from the castle didn't even see the beam of fire. They only witnessed a sudden flash of light. The fire giant stared at the cloud of smoke and the crater created by the beam of fire. The scorching hot beam turned everything into ashes. Gradually the mist cleared. The fire giant was stunned as it could see Rowena's figure in the mist. The blue robes she wore were burnt to a crisp by the flame despite the protection runes placed on them. This time, pure frosty ice materialized on her body, forming an armor. The prophecy standing in her office, Kayla was witnessing the fight through the window. "We have entered the age of darkness," she recalled the words Wulfric spoke a couple of months ago. Headmistress Gilrine entered the room. "I placed the talismans you gave me around the forest," Kayla sighed. "Make sure no one ventures into the Black Forest. From now on, the Black Forest is forbidden for everyone including the staff," she said without moving her eyes from the fire giant. "Visit Elworld. COM for a better understanding experience." Headmistress Gilrine had a bewildered look on his face. He scratched the back of his head. "You can spit out what's in your mind, Gilrine. Why aren't we deploying our forces to Black Forest, Headmistress? Our forces can subdue the fire giant without destroying the forest. The forces in play are beyond the mortals, Gilrine. Our forces are nothing before them." Gilrine nodded without uttering any word. He trusted the headmaster and headmistress with his life. Whatever decision they made, he knew it would be the best. Frost storm on the battlefield. Rowena raised her hand, casting a chantless spell. The Black Forest became darker as the storm clouds blanketed the moon and her dazzling light. The students gasped in shock. Storm was an understatement. The howling wind and the size of the tornado arose, connecting the ground and the sky, frightened every single one. Even Victoria was stunned by the sight of the storm in the Black Forest. The tornado swirled towards the fire giant. Oh! The fire giant breathed fire into the icy tornado. The dance between ice and fire created a phenomenon no one had ever seen. Kayla, who knew the storm was created by the Holy Maiden, felt a chill. She knew this spell could destroy an entire city within a few minutes. Even a spell like that caliber couldn't kill the fire giant. Rowena shot into the tornado, and the moment she reached the tornado swirled faster and faster, and the power of the first storm multiplied by several folds. She pushed away the fire coming from the giant's mouth. Little by little, the frost storm moved towards the fire giant through the stream of fire. "Arctic arrows," she shouted in her mind as hundreds of 6-foot arrows shot out from the tornado like bullets. The fire giant raised its hand to defend its eyes from the arrows. Step by step the fire giant moved back. "Airy!" The fire giant screamed, but the scream was not of pain, it was a shout of anger. Try the Elworld. COM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Boom. All of a sudden the fire giant punched the tornado. Rowena's body was thrown into the swirling force. Before she could steady herself, the fire giant embraced the tornado. The fire giant tightened the embrace as the tornado began to form cracks. "Annoying bug," Rowena heard the fire giant speak to her in a demonic voice. Slowly the tornado turned darker and darker. The white frost took a turn to the opposite and transformed to pitch black. Rowena raised her hand, trying to move the tornado forward while dispelling the dark energy invading her spell. Her nose bled as her skin became pale as a paper. "Holy Maiden," Bai Ning, who was witnessing the battle from a secluded room in Mazeroth, murmured under her breath. She could see the dark energy weakening Holy Maiden's energy. It felt as though the fire giant was drawing the blackness around it to get stronger. She could vaguely see unknown dark energy being absorbed by the fire giant from the sky itself. Rowena stopped powering the tornado. Within a few moments, the stormy clouds perished from the night sky. Yet again the full moon showered the ground with her light. Unexpectedly, when the light was shone on the fire giant, it grew weaker. Rowena noticed this by seeing the flicking eyes of the fire giant. When the tornado evaporated, the giant lost its balance. It stumbled forward only to receive a giant fist made of ice to its face. The icy mist enveloped the area, and when Rowena emerged from the icy mist, her eyes were glowing. The students were able to see Rowena now as she was floating, and her figure was growing in size rapidly. The armor covering her body enlarged. In a few minutes, she was in the center of a giant made of ice. Thus, the battle between a human and a fire giant turned into a battle between two giants. Only a few minutes passed when the ice giant grew to the size of the fire giant. Ice mirrors. Rowena noticed the fire giant's weakness to light. So she cast a spell that formed hundreds of mirrors made of ice around them. All the mirrors appeared in the angel to reflect and focus the moonlight onto the fire giant. Even in the face of hundreds of mirrors shedding light onto it, the fire giant stood still. The third piece of the soul was the soul piece of the Dark Lord after all. The fire giant began to smash the mirrors in the sky. The power of the moonlight was the reason Elidar chose this particular day. On any other day, defeating the fire giant would have been near impossible. The fire giant violently smashed the mirrors faster than Rowena created them. Looking at the fire giant getting close to her, she yet again raised her hands towards the sky. Then she called for the most powerful weapon in her arsenal. Updated _ at World. Sim, I call forth thy coldest flames in the universe. A gush of frosty wind immediately surrounded Rowena's body. An invisible force pushed the fire giant and put out the flames around them. Then a layer of frost layered everything within a mile radius. From the sky itself, a stream of blue flames flew to Rowena, taking the shape of a winged woman. Primordial flame. Victoria immediately recognized the phenomenon as the primordial flames, while the other students were gawking at the sky startled. The cold flames, Edith mumbled. For the first time, the fire giant's pitch-black eyes flickered and Rowena sensed an aura of distress from whatever possessed the fire giant. Victoria never believed the primordial flames possessed a mind of their own, but when she saw the flames escaping from her and now it had chosen an extremely powerful cultivator as its master, she believed the tests were true. She thought having cosmic energy would let her absorb the primordial flames. Destroyer. Directly above the fire giant, a giant sword that was triple the size of the fire giant materialized. The frost-covered sword hung above the fire giant as the primordial flames coiled around the sword like a dragon. The sword gradually grew in size to the point it made the fire giant look puny as an ant. Shit, the fire giant mumbled as the sword descended on itself. Boom. When the sword landed on the ground, it created a mushroom cloud as though a nuke went off. The shock wave shook even the castle as many students were thrown off balance. Rowena lost all her strength. Hence she fell from the sky. She slowly lost consciousness. The battle took everything in her, and before she closed her eyes, she saw a golden light flash across her eyes. Bai Ning teleported to where the battle was happening. She caught the holy maiden in the mid-air before she hit the ground. A deep dark line formed on Bai Ning's forehead as she saw no signs of the fire giant. She spread her senses to locate the giant but found no living beings in the near vicinity. The vital signs in Rowena's body started to diminish, so Bai Ning didn't dare to linger around or go search for the remains of the fire giant. Her first priority was to make sure Rowena was alive and well. After the battle between Rowena and the fire giant concluded, the desolate mountain where Elidar was imprisoned received guests again. Keep him still. Updated _ at World. Michael's body was violently trembling. Gaia's clothes were drenched in the blood gushing out of Michael's mouth, ears, nose and eyes. The fire giant was lying beside him badly mutilated. Its hands and lower half were missing. They were evaporated by the cold flames. Elidar was quick enough to save the fire giant before the cold flames destroyed the soul piece. He never expected Rowena to possess a primordial flame. Each piece of the soul was connected. Because the cold flames damaged one piece of the soul, the others residing within Michael began to respond to it. One piece couldn't survive without the other. Therefore the other soul pieces tried to leave his body. In simple words, he was dying and he would die unless Elidar put his soul back together again. Chapter 455. Michael, Lucifer and Abras. Michael was dozing in a place where golden reeds expanded as far as one could see. A golden ray of light shone down, piercing through his eyelids. His eyes as well as the tip of his index finger slightly moved. He couldn't open his eyes with ease as it felt as though his eyelids were glued together. Little by little, his consciousness returned to him. The darkness before him slowly shifted towards a golden light. Everything that happened before he lost consciousness returned to him. The last thing he remembered was the face of Gaia. The memories abruptly awakened him. Suddenly the breath of life returned to him as he sat up. As far as he could see, there was nothing but golden reeds. Is this heaven? He thought in his mind while getting back to his feet. He tried to summon the system, except there was no sign of the system within him. I wish, a kind voice sounded from behind. Michael turned back in a flash to see a black-robed youngster who wore a gentle smile on his face. Abras, the one standing in front of him, was none other than Abras. Michael and Abras looked alike, except Michael's current self was more mature, tall and muscular. Michael, Abras smiled. Beautiful, isn't it? Abras looked around the golden reeds. What's happening? Michael stepped towards Abras and joined him in the sightseeing. Countless questions wreaking havoc in his mind. Where am I? What is this place? How am I seeing Abras? Why does this feel so real? Is this a dream? Am I dead? These were some of the questions he asked himself. Are you confused, Michael? When I learned we are the same person, I was confused too, Abras spoke in a calm manner. But I made peace with you, we became one and we were one until you chose to become the Dark Lord. We didn't make that choice, it was made for us. Otherwise we wouldn't be here, would we? Visit L-World. COM for a better reading experience. It was extremely difficult for Michael to accept that Abras and he were the same person. It didn't feel that way. Until you make peace, we will remain as pieces, Abras said as he read Michael's thoughts. Peace? Peace with what? Asked Michael. He turned his head to see Abras still looking at the ocean of golden reeds in front of them. You and I are the same. The moment these words escaped Abras' mouth, the golden scenery lost all of its lusters. Everything became dark and gloomy, following the change in the scary, the familiar demonic voice echoed through the golden reed fields. Full. They both turned back to see Lucifer, in his complete form enveloped in a shroud of dark smoke and crimson-red eyes emerging from the ground beneath. Unlike Michael and Abras, Lucifer stood almost towering 8 feet tall. Lucifer, the last piece of our soul, Abras introduced Lucifer to Michael as though Michael did not know him. Finally we meet face to face. Michael. Lucifer's eyes flared up in red flames. I am confused as fuck. We are supposed to be the same person, yet it feels nothing like that. Michael sighed as he tried to make sense of this situation. System, Michael called out the system in his mind. Don't bother, the system cannot help you. It's probably sick of you two losers, Lucifer growled. We received such a powerful weapon and yet, we are still getting our ass handed over to us by puny humans. You are unworthy of such power. Lucifer completely ignored Abras and vented his anger at Michael. He then dashed at Michael and punched him. Arg. The punch landed on Michael because Lucifer was too fast. However, when he punched Michael, he shouted, and so did Michael and Abras. We are the same, Abras groaned. The punch pushed the three of them in a separate direction. When each stood up, they noticed they were standing in a triangle. Your focus on mortal pleasures and inability to get stronger has brought this upon us. Lucifer clenched his fist as the surroundings became darker and darker. Instead of putting all the blame on me, why don't you take charge? After all, we are the same, right? Why are you talking to me like I'm the one controlling the both of you? New under published on L-World. COM, because when our soul was shattered, the largest piece of the soul went to Earth. Abras sighed as he began to explain. That's why you always remain in control and I feel like a different person to you. It should have been me. Yet again Lucifer growled. Makes sense. Finally something made sense to Michael. In his mind he simplified Abras' explanation. In mathematical terms, he was 50% of the soul while Abras and Lucifer were only 25% each. Thus, he remained in control of the body as well as the other pieces of the soul. I was on Earth. Michael looked at Abras. You were in the sanctuary. Then he turned to look at Lucifer. But where were you? Within, both of you fools, experiencing both your pathetic lives. Do you know how it feels to be caged and do nothing? When both of you died, I thought I would be finally free, but no, I got caged again. This time, I will end both of you and take the system for myself. With that ultimate power, I can conquer this world and everything in this universe. And then what? Abras asked. You will bring nothing but death and chaos to the world. Michael doesn't listen to him. We don't have to walk the path he would choose. We have everything a man needs to be happy. A job, a woman who loves us dearly, and people who would shed tears for us. It's enough. You are pathetic. A woman betrayed you and put a dagger through your heart. A job and a woman, humph. We are born to be a god, and gods must bring their wrath upon the mortals to get their loyalty and undying devotion. Give me the system and the control of your being to me. It's time the system had a worthy user. Michael was stuck between Lucifer and Abras. If Abras was one extreme, Lucifer was another extreme. Lucifer hated him and wanted to go on a killing spree with the help of the system, while Abras wanted to settle down and live a peaceful life. Both of their wishes were unrealistic. You wasted the system's potential. We were supposed to be the overpowered god walking among mortals. But you chose to indulge yourself in mere mortal pleasures, care for humans and recruit weaklings as your subordinates. Gods don't need subordinates, gods don't need plans, gods don't need alliances. We only need power, and you are too weak to get stronger. Lucifer walked towards Michael step by step. Our old enemies are getting stronger by the day. New powerful enemies are emerging from the darkest corners. You being cautious, making alliances, and living a fake life as Ghost will only let us get killed. Surrender yourselves to me. No, Abras stepped forward. If you listen to him, he will turn us into everything and prove the Sky Hall and the Guardians are right. Leave everything behind you, Michael. We can live peacefully in a corner of this world. The system can hide us. We can be normal for the first time in our lives. We can have a family. This imbecile. Lucifer lunged at Abras, and before either of them could react, Lucifer punched Abras in the chest. Yet again the trio was sent flying like kites in the storm. Michael felt an excruciating pain in his chest, but no blood came out of him. We are not killers and bringer of darkness, Michael. Abras groaned as he picked himself to his feet. We are not a weakling and a beta like him, Lucifer shouted from the other side. Stuck between the both of them, Michael just closed his eyes. The words they spoke to him flashed across his mind once again. When he opened his eyes, the darkness disappeared as the golden luster came back to the scenery. New_chap_ or pub _list on L-World. Tom, you are both right and wrong. Michael let out a deep breath. Lucifer, you are right when you said him not using the system to its full potential. You are right when you said living a fake life as Ghost will only get us killed. The dark cloud shrouding Lucifer slowly started to fade away as he was making peace with the Lucifer soul piece. But you are wrong about needing no subordinates, no alliances and mortal pleasures. You yourself said we have new enemies appearing and old enemies getting stronger day by day. We cannot defeat them by being alone. I am not a god yet, and even gods need subordinates to do their bidding. Lucifer tried to say something but raised his hand as no sound came out of Lucifer's mouth. As the majority soul holder, Michael started to fully realize his power and exerted his power over Lucifer. He then turned his gaze at Abras. You are right, we are not bringer of darkness. I found a girl who loves me more than anything. But you are still naive, Abras. We can't live peacefully, not now, not soon, not ever. You did nothing wrong and look what happened to you. You were betrayed. Your mistake cost you everyone you ever loved. When I'm done, no one will be in our way to a life you've dreamed of. Both of you will get what you want. Michael exerted his power over both of them. He raised his arms at both of them as a powerful force pulled Lucifer and Abras towards Michael. If we don't come to peace with each other, neither of us will live long to get anything we want. I only want a peaceful life. Abras was the first to speak. The gentle smile on his face returned and he looked to be at peace. I want our enemies to suffer, this world to fall on its knees before us and everything we desire. Lucifer's tone was more demanding rather than requesting. It made sense, after all, he was more of a maniac and devilish. We are the same. No more broken pieces. We are Michael. We are Abras. We are the Dark Lord. Michael screamed at the sky. His voice became the mix of Abras and Lucifer. Soon, the cloud shrouding Lucifer abandoned him and began to envelop Michael. We are one this time, both Lucifer and Abras said in unison. The very next moment, Lucifer and Abras turned into an orb of light and flew straight into Michael. Human, Michael, please wake up, don't leave me, Ghosty, Ghosty. Michael heard the voices of Gaia and Nightmare in the distance. Arg, back on the desolate mountain where Elodie was caged, Michael sat up. Human. Gaia's scream nearly broke his eardrum and her hug broke his rib cage. Elodie squatted before him before putting his hand on Michael's shoulder. You did it, your soul is now whole again. Try the L-World. Seat OM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Chapter 456 The Dark Flames I host. Michael Cultivation Level. Core Strengthening Stage Level 6 Experience Points. 0/600, 000 Badass Points. 60,000 40,000 Badass Points Loan. Skills and Spells. Wind Blast, LVL6 Responsive Shield, LVL8 Environment Scanning, LVL6 Ignitia, LVL8 Lightning Dash, LVL6 Energy Devour, LVL2 Soul Eater, LVL1 Death Range, LVL3 Eyes of Darkness, Normal. Can sense the cultivation level of others. Eyes of Darkness, Lucifer. Can sense the cultivation level of others. Can see through illusions. Cloud of Darkness, Lucifer. Weak-willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful, and if activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless Spellcaster, Lucifer. In full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques. Swords of Destiny, 98% Mastery. Ring of Fire, 88% Mastery. Serpent Maga, 97% Mastery. Occupation. Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal, the Dark Lord, King of Bradford. Status. Healthy goals. Control the world, rebuild the Order of Death, full _ new _ on the L-World. COM platform. Utility function, Banker LVL5, ratio, 1000 gold coins, 40 badass points, runic teleportation X-ray vision, also integrated with Eyes of Darkness, wealth, 15 million gold special trait, 5-star alchemist 4-star inventor subordinates, Gaia, warrior loyalty level 100%, Raylene, 5-star chef, loyalty level 99%, Arya, assassin loyalty level 68%, Heinberg, warrior, loyalty level 45%, Maxine, warrior loyalty level 98%, Tiberius, warrior, loyalty level 55%, Sadie, loyalty level 40%, Ricky, loyalty level 98%, The Silent Reaper crew, pirates, loyalty level 90%, base of operation, Sunrise sect the Abyssal the Crypt Kingdom of Bradford Familiars, Nightmare, Forest Dragon, Vidora, Three-Headed Hydra, Elemental Manipulation, Wind, 10% Mastery, Fire, 10% Mastery, Lightning 15% Mastery, Darkness 20%. The moment he woke up, he was taken into the system interface and presented with the status window where he noticed a couple of changes. He leveled up by 2 levels. Previously he was a core strengthening stage level 4 cultivator, but at the moment the status window showed level 6. Reading through the status he saw an entirely new row. Elemental Manipulation, as the name suggested, elemental manipulation was the power to control the elements themselves. In this world only a few could control elements, including Michael. It was a power that belonged to the most powerful ancient gods. Their existence was hidden from the rest of the world by Skyhall, as the existence of new gods would cause chaos among the religious institutes and alter everything the people believed. So system, what's your explanation for what just happened? The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published _here L-World. Tom. The system level is dash. Thought so. Michael interrupted the system before it could finish its annoying answer. Victoria, you bitch. He suddenly remembered the massacre of the sanctuary. Since the soul piece was merged into one, Michael didn't feel like Abras was another person. In addition to the changes in the status window, Michael also sensed changes in his mentality. For instance, he craved to control the world more than he felt before. This world lacked God's intervention and Michael wanted to fix that. Gaia was still embracing him with all her might, with Nightmare stuck between them. His vest started to feel wet by the tears gushing out of Gaia's eyes. Why are you wasting those precious tears? They should come from our enemy's eyes before dying. Michael lifted her head gently. He cupped her face, wiping the tears with his fingers. Smile, he smiled at her. You scared me, bastard. Sorry for the inconvenience caused by my broken pieces of the soul, he said sarcastically. Ghosty, are you fine now? Nightmare looked up at him. Michael never thought a dragon's face could show such a clear-cut expression. Seeing the dragon worry about him warmed his heart. I'm whole again, just like Eladir said. He looked at the half-elf standing obediently a few meters away from them. Michael let go of Gaia and Nightmare to thank Eladir. You served me well, Eladir. I will grant you a wish for what you did. Ask, as he said to Eladir. Michael exerted his power over the surroundings to make everything darker. The storm clouds blanketed the sun according to his will. I wish to serve you as your subordinate and accompany you in your journey to make this world better, my lord. Eladir knelt on his one knee, lowering his head. Darkness is not evil, it's portrayed as evil. Remember, Eladir, darkness does not always equate to evil, just as light does not always bring good, said Michael. I bring darkness so everyone can see the real light. Anything better than the current world will be a paradise, and I will transform this world into a paradise opposite to Skyhall's and Guardian Guild's vision. Michael saw the concern in Eladir's eyes. It was obvious to Michael. He wasn't willing to serve him because of loyalty, but to try to deviate Michael from transforming the world into a realm of darkness which was seen by Xianxia in the future. Does the host wish to accept Eladir as a subordinate? Yes, Michael accepted Eladir as his subordinate to see his 42% loyalty. He didn't mind the low loyalty level, as he knew better than to expect 100% loyalty from an ancient elf who he knew only for a couple of days. Rise, Michael gestured at Eladir as he stood up. We should get out of here. Gaia wanted to ask more about how he merged the soul pieces, but before that, she wanted to leave this pocket dimension. Otherwise, someone might notice him missing and start investigating. I'm not done yet, calmly said Michael. Huh? Give me the teleportation scroll. I want the primordial flame. The latest studies are on the L-World. Xiom website. Since Michael merged his soul with the third piece, the battle between Rowena and the fire giant that was controlled by him replayed in his mind. He was stunned by the power of the primordial flame. Coincidence or not, he was presented with a rare opportunity to acquire a primordial flame to himself through Professor Lane. Gaia saw the resolve in his eyes and realized there was no use in arguing with him. Therefore, she took out the parchment from her space ring with a flick of her wrist. Michael didn't open the scroll but threw it at Eladir. "You're coming with us," said Michael. It took Eladir a couple of minutes to make changes to the scroll to teleport 4 instead of 2. Surprisingly, the location of the destination was relatively closer to the gateway to this pocket dimension. "Here you go, my lord." Eladir now started to address Michael as my lord instead of Lucifer as he used to. Although Eladir sensed an aura of a god when he first met him, it had never been as strong as the aura he released after the ritual. He couldn't get himself to address Lucifer by his name. Michael passed the scroll to Gaia as she sent a sliver of arch energy into the scroll. The scroll began to glow brighter and brighter, and in a blink of an eye, a golden light enveloped them. After being teleported away from the pocket dimension, they noticed that they were back in the Black Forest. Before the 4 of them was a minor fallen tree in an overcast morass marked the entrance to the dungeon. Beyond the fallen tree lies a modest, clammy room. It's covered in dead vermin, ash and moss. Eladir conjured a bright orb of light to light the path before them. The bright light revealed the rusted weapons racks and open crates, wasted and ravaged by time itself. As they went further through the dungeon, the pathway split into 2 paths. Michael retrieved 2 drones from the system storage and sent one to explore each path. The path on his right had countless traps installed. But the drone activated none of them because the traps were not designed to sense arch energy. Whoever built the dungeon placed a void array and never expected one to use arch energy inside the dungeon. Several minutes later, the drone reached the end of the path where there was nothing but a dead end. Left, Michael entered the path on his left. Its twisted trail leads past long-lost rooms and tombs. Everything was cleaned up and there was nothing valuable that attracted Michael's attention. Since the drone was exploring ahead of them and sending live feed, Michael knew the path and traps in place. They avoided the usual pressure traps and tripwires by floating above the ground. As they traveled further and further, they began to notice countless broken skeletons on the ground. Moreover, there were bloodstains on the walls and the ceiling above them. "Is it me or do they look fresh?" Gaia pointed at the bloodstains on the wall. "The smell is also fresh." Nightmare took a whiff of the air and said. They cautiously proceeded onwards, deeper into the dungeon's expanse. Despite the various passages opened up to them, Michael led them through the correct one thanks to the drones. The various passages all looked so similar as this whole place was a maze. They eventually made it to what is likely the end. Only a ground filled with skeletons, broken limbs, and dead bodies could be seen between them and a single room at the end of the hall. Eladir sensed countless runes all around, somehow untouched by time and the elements. Gaia on the other hand waved her hand as the remains of skeleton soldiers floated towards them from the ground. She inspected the deep cuts on their bones as well as the scorched marks that almost burned the bones to ashes. The primordial flame. Her inspection was abruptly interrupted by the words that came out of Michael's mouth. The drone he sent to explore the room at the end of the hall was destroyed the moment it entered the room, but not before sending him a millisecond feed of the room where he saw something magnificent, pitch-black flames. The flames, their beauty was beyond any words. They danced in the air as though they were waiting for someone to be partnered with. It was weird of him to feel like the flames were calling for him. "Someone's been here recently, someone powerful." Eladir frowned after seeing the countless limbs of mountain trolls lying around. Defeating one mountain troll without using arch energy was extremely difficult if not impossible. But whoever ventured into the dungeon before they slaughtered so many? The only explanation Eladir could come up with was either they used arch energy or something much more powerful, because there was no way one could survive this dungeon without cultivation power. "Maybe the Holy Maiden?" asked Gaia. "Whoever it is, we will meet them soon," Michael said before slowly floating towards the room to claim the primordial flame to himself. The source of this _chapter. L-World. Sidoam. Chapter 457. The Dark Flames. The closer they got to the room, Gaia felt an immense amount of pressure crushing them. It was as though an invisible mountain landed on their shoulder. Nightmare gasped for air in Gaia's hands. "Stay here." Noticing the hard time they were having, Michael decided not to take them with him into the chamber. "I'm not gonna argue," Gaia agreed with him, and so did Eladir with a nod. When Michael entered the chamber, he saw the black flames dancing above a pillar made of marble. Like the flames had sensed him, they leaned in his direction. Michael slowly reached out for the flames as they advanced toward him. "Warning! Warning! Warning! Warning!" Extreme level of radiation detected. The system went crazy in his head. He ignored all the red warning poppings that were blocking his sight. As he was getting closer to the black flames, the warnings and the shoutings of the system vanished. Does the host wish to absorb the dark flames? The system asked when he was just a few inches away from the flames. Yes, Michael touched the flames, and the moment the flame and his fingers met, a wave of energy surged over him, wave after wave. The flames seeped through his hand into his very being. He felt like he was being struck by thousands of lightning bolts simultaneously. But instead of pain, it was a feeling of comfort. Absorbing the dark flame, activating the energy devourer, experience points converted 50,000, experience points converted 100,000. You can find the rest of this content on the L World COM platform. Experience points converted 70,000. The energy devourer continued to transform the excess energy into experience points. Michael thought it would stop in a few minutes, but on the contrary, it lasted until he began to level up rapidly. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 7. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 8. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 9. His excitement was going through the roof. He bottled his excitement when he reached Core Strengthening Stage Level 9, as he thought his leveling up would stop there. Congratulations to the host for reaching the next stage, the Soul Refining Stage. Oh my god, he's breaking through. Gaia sensed the violent energy fluctuations in the surroundings. The celestial energy descended from the realm of angels, creating ripples in the night sky. The last time Michael witnessed the celestial energy descending was when he traveled to the Rainbow Island, where Layla's disciples prevented Christopher from reaching the Soul Refining Stage. The system regulated the celestial energy through Energy Devourer. Hence, the jumping from the Core Strengthening Stage to the Soul Refining Stage was so much smoother than the rest of the cultivators in the world. His skin turned darker and darker to the point he looked downright black except for his crimson-red eyes. But soon, the red fire in his eyes was too invaded by the dark flames and transformed from red to black. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 1. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 2. The leveling up spree finally stopped at Soul Refining Stage Level 2. The dark flames now completely merged themselves with Michael's soul, strengthening every fiber in his body. The dark flame absorption is completed. All of the host's spells and skills has strengthened by the dark flames. The host is now immune to all the attacks under the Soul Refining Stage except attacks powered by another primordial flame. The host's mastery over the darkness element is increased by 5%. New_chap_ or pub_list on L World COM. The host's mastery over the fire element is increased by 5%. Potions and pills made using dark flames will have 94% purity. The spell Responsive Shield has merged with dark flames and transformed into Dark Shield. The spell Ignitia has merged with dark flames and transformed into Dark Ignitia. The spell Wind Blast has merged with dark flames and transformed into Dark Blast. The spell Ring of Fire has merged with dark flames and transformed into Ring of Dark Fire. All these spells were powered up by the dark flames and became much more powerful. All these changes transformed him from a mortal cultivator to a godlike existence. Anyone under the Soul Refining Stage would have no chance of defeating him even if they used legendary spells. He could kill them with a single spell in his normal form, and if he was in his full Lucifer form, it would only take him a punch to destroy his foes. Moreover, in his complete Lucifer form, he could defeat anyone in the Soul Refining Stage and had the chance to defeat cultivators under Fusion Stage Level 3. The Dark Flames was one of the power seeds of darkness. Every time he obtains a seed of darkness, his power would grow exponentially. No one in this world knew the existence of these power seeds, and just like the seeds of darkness, there existed the seeds of light. In the race to get the seeds, Noah already obtained Heaven's Flames. By absorbing the dark flames, Michael now equalized odds. However, compared to Noah, Michael was on the next level in terms of power because Michael obtained the primordial flames of his source power, darkness. Noah on the other hand absorbed Heaven's Flame, not the light flame. Hence, he didn't go through the changes Michael did. This feels good, Michael grinned as he conjured the dark flames. The majestic dark flames danced over his palms. Then in a blink of an eye, the flames turned emerald green. He could now change the flames to his will. Human, just as he was about to see what else he could do now, Gaia called him. He walked out of the chamber only to see the skeletons as well as the dead bodies reanimating again. In a couple of minutes, hundreds of skeleton soldiers and almost 20 mountain trolls stood in front of them. The dungeon expanded in size to accommodate all the trolls and the skeletons. Gaia could crush the skeletons no problem, but the trolls were the real threat. Even with her cultivation, if the trolls managed to get their hands on her before she cast spells, she was as good as dead. Edlitter felt the same, except he had no core strengthening stage cultivation. If he were to fight the army of skeletons in front of him, even with his runes, he could survive the dungeon for a few minutes top. Due to the army of skeletons and trolls in front of her, Gaia had no time to be stunned by his breakthrough into the soul refining stage. The sight of hundreds of skeletons and trolls didn't scare him the slightest. On the contrary, it put a grin on his face. Visit Elworld. Com for the best no underserved experience. Stay back, Michael said calmly before walking towards the skeletons and the trolls. Immediately the skeletons standing in front rushed at him, waving the rusty swords in their hands. Dark blast. Gaia witnessed a dark crescent wave shoot out of him, blasting the skeletons to pieces. Everything the dark wave touched burned to oblivion. With a single spell, Michael decimated at least 30 skeleton soldiers, and he didn't even use his full power. Lightning dash. In a flash he dashed to the center of the army. Ring of dark fire. Before the skeletons and trolls could react, he cast another spell. A circle of dark flames shot out of him, scorching everything around him in a 5-meter radius. It didn't stop at that, as the ring continued to send towering waves of dark flames. The flames burnt the trolls to ash like dried sticks. Unfortunately, these skeletons and trolls had no arch energy in them. Otherwise, he would have earned enough experience points to level up yet again. Still, Michael wasn't disappointed. They proved to be good dummies to test his evolved spells. The display of his power left Eladir in a daze. Each of his spells had the power to rival the most powerful legendary spells. They were not as fancy as some, but deadlier than most. In a few minutes he had burnt almost 200 skeletons and 20 trolls. The most powerful spell in his arsenal turned out to be Xianxia. Merged with dark flames, the golden lightning bolts turned into bolts of black lightning. Each bolt blasted through the skeletons and burst open the trolls' heads into red mist as though they were melons. Half of the army had been reduced to ashes. At this point, Gaia wasn't even surprised by his power. Now time for my full form. Michael willed the system to equip his Lucifer armor, activate Cloud of Darkness as well as Eyes of Darkness, which flared up in black due to the dark flames instead of crimson red. The dungeon fell dark all of a sudden. The remaining skeletons and the trolls rushed at him mindlessly. They had no strategy or fear, as they were just animated corpses that had a single purpose: killing the intruders. Death range. The dungeon became darker as Eladir noticed a black circle expand from him, wrapping everything in its path. Ring of dark fire. This time when he cast the spell, the dungeon trembled. The ring of dark flames was more violent, like surging tsunami waves. Eladir and Gaia heard unearthly vibrations as well as sensed the energy pulsating in the dungeon. Boom. One single wave, only one single wave. Every skeleton and troll was reduced to nothingness. Not even ashes remained after the dark flames brushed past them. Visit Elworld. COM for a better user experience. This is my true power, Michael mumbled under his breath. Even he was startled by his own power. Thinking that he only used 20% of his power and didn't enhance the spell further with celestial energy made him feel sorry for his enemies. Ghosty is scary. Nightmare's eyes went wide open. In the corner of his little heart, a sliver of fear emerged, just like Eladir. Chapter 458 Pirate Heaven. Aiden. Inside the Ice Palace, Rowena meditated with her eyes closed. Her eyes slowly opened when she sensed Bai Ning approaching her. Bai Ning waved her hand as the mist shrouding the room faded away, revealing the empty room built of cold ice. Holy Maiden, Bai Ning approached Rowena. I scoured the Black Forest, but I didn't find the fire giant's remains. Rowena slowly opened her eyes after hearing Bai Ning. That is now a problem of Mazeroth, Rowena said coldly. But Holy Maiden, the energy I sense from the fire giant was something ominous and sinister. It's the Dark Lord. Bai Ning felt a chill running through her spine the moment Rowena said this. She suspected it. Still, it was shocking to hear from the Holy Maiden. I must alert the elders. Don't bother. I already ordered them to stand down. Bai Ning was stunned. What? What? How long have you been searching for the Dark Lord? Rowena stood up. Bai Ning couldn't guess what was the meaning behind her question. For nearly 4,000 years, answered Bai Ning. You didn't find him then and you are not going to find him now. If I am right, he has covered all his tracks. Rowena was calm, too calm despite the situation. Bai Ning disliked the holy maiden taking the threat posed by the Dark Lord so lightly. However, the old woman knew better than to disagree with Rowena. What do you suggest we should do, holy maiden? Nothing, as Rowena said. She gracefully walked toward the wall behind her and waved her hand. The wall slowly split open, revealing the floating mountains and puffy clouds beneath them. Rowena closed her eyes, absorbing the cold energy of the dazzling moonlight. The Dark Lord won't stay in Aquilan realm for long. We have to catch him, Bai Ning said to herself. When the time comes, we will meet the Dark Lord. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published _here L-World. Sitoam Rowena would rather focus on getting stronger than wasting her time looking for the Dark Lord. It was not her job but the Great Eight clans. She approached Bai Ning and then flicked her wrist as a golden parchment appeared in her hands. The scroll looked exactly the same as the invitation to Mazeroth that Ghost received. Mazeroth has chosen Sabrina, send this to her. Rowena handed over the parchment to Bai Ning. Holy maiden, if I may, can I ask you something? Rowena nodded at Bai Ning. Your brother was also chosen by Mazeroth, but why didn't he come? Because I told him not to. Not yet. Bai Ning was stunned. Do you remember the assassins you brought me, Bai Ning? Bai Ning began to sweat under her robes despite the chillness of the room. An oblivious spell was cast on them. Oblivious spell? Bai Ning's brows arched up. The oblivious spell was created by Xianxia herself. This spell could only be cast by someone from Sky Hall. Almost 4,000 years ago Xianxia invented the spell to forget about the Dark Lord. It was way before Xianxia mustered the courage to fight back. After she escaped from the future, she desperately wanted to erase the memories of the Dark Lord. Those memories were beyond horrible. With her 3 best friends' help, she created Oblivious, which could erase someone's memories in part or as a whole. However, when she realized the risk of using such a spell, she made sure that only someone from Sky Hall could cast the spell. Before disappearing from Aquilan realm, Wulfric used the Oblivious spell on Eladir, erasing all of Eladir's memories of Wulfric as well as those who participated in the ritual. Yes. You know what this means, right? Asked Rowena as Bai Ning felt the room becoming colder and colder. The holy maiden's eyes flickered with cold, killing intent. Someone from Sky Hall? Cast it. Each word of these words could barely escape her mouth. Just by thinking about the possibility that someone inside Sky Hall may have targeted the holy maiden's family rendered her body a living statue. She could not even breathe looking at the holy maiden. You wouldn't happen to know who might be this traitor, would you? Rowena placed her hand on Bai Ning's shoulder as the old woman's entire body froze for a moment. Holy maiden, I want everything about everyone in Sky Hall. You have a week. When Rowena took her arm off of Bai Ning's shoulder, the ice layer covering the old woman's body vanished into thin air. Yes, holy maiden. Bai Ning shuddered. The old woman bowed deeply in fear, and when she was about to turn back and leave, Rowena called her again. New novel _Sir published here, L-World. Xiom Bai Ning, holy maiden. Not a single word about this to anyone. Rowena's words were colder than usual. They made the old woman shiver. I swear on my life, holy maiden. I won't speak of this to anyone. After Bai Ning left the room, Rowena waved her hand as the wall sealed close. Whoever you are, you dug your own grave. Rowena's killing intent rose through the roof. More than anything in this world, Rowena loved her family the most. The elders of Sky Hall advised her to cut the ties with her family as a holy maiden should, but Rowena outright refused it. She would destroy anyone who dared to threaten the safety of her family, even if that someone belonged to the Sky Hall. For Rowena, her family mattered more than the Sky Hall or the elders. Cast on the eastern side of a southern continent, the town of Aden was home to pirates led by one of the 3 pirate lords, Gibby's Blackmane Jet. This town wasn't built by an island by accident, as it had spiritual significance, which was of great importance to the pirates of Aden and its success despite the myth that pirates didn't give any importance to spiritual well-being. The town itself looked hideous and striking at the same time. With its willow wood rooftops, redwood walls and white, sandy beaches. The main attraction was the lighthouse, which was built 21 years ago and designed by the elves. The pirate population in Aden grew to over 2,000 residents, quickly outnumbering the 100 or so original law-abiding citizens. This once port city belonged to the Royal Navy of Ar had quickly grown lawless and became an exciting mecca for criminals, escapees, former slaves and mercenaries. In simple words, Aden was the safe haven for all the pirates in the southern continent where they lived as freemen doing whatever they wanted to plunder whoever they wanted. The sea was calm under the morning sun. Everything was going on as usual in Aden. Some pirates were sunbathing after drinking a little too much rum, and some pirates were making their way to the nearby tavern to drink rum after vomiting because they had drunk too much rum. No matter where one turned, they could see the pirates drinking, pissing, and having sex wherever they want as though they had no idea of privacy or shame. The place was completely lawless, but for the pirates, this place was their republic where the freemen reigned. Among the drunk pirates, only one remained steady. This pirate was barely 4 feet tall and one would hardly recognize him as a pirate instead of as a kid. Finally they are here. This little pirate was none other than Shorty. He was sent to Aden as a scout with a few others who were lying God knows where fully drunk. Hey look, war frigate approaching, what the hell? What flag are they flying? Some of the pirates who were not so drunk saw the 5 ships approaching their island and began to wake the others. Old Bertha was gracefully sailing in front like a formidable leader. The name Old Bertha hardly suited her as now she was fitted with brand new cannons, reinforced black hull, black sails, brand new rudder as well as 2 mortars, one between each neighboring pair of masts for long-range battle. Behind her were 4 brigades and they were all sailing in a rhombus formation. Try the L world. Xiom platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Ding, ding, ding. Shorty heard the bell sounds ring across the island, alerting the rest of the pirates and mainly the pirate captains. It's Pirate Lord Corey. They are flying Pirate Lord Corey's flags. The experienced pirates quickly recognized the lips and lightning bolt symbol on the black flag. The moment they saw the flags, they knew the ships belonged to Pirate Lord Corey and did not dare to fire the mortars. The residents of Aden quickly arrived at the port to see the 5 ships anchoring. Their eyes were glued to the mean-looking Old Bertha. They had never seen a ship completely painted in black as pirates considered painting the ships a waste of gold coins. Shorty couldn't wait to join back on Old Bertha. He was getting sick of living in Aden. All one could do on this island was get drunk, and since Shorty quit drinking so he could become a cultivator, he had nothing else to do except watch others get drunk and hump. Nonetheless, he still couldn't join his crew, not yet. Standing under a coconut tree with a few other pirates, Shorty saw Gibson walking out of Bertha first, followed by Tiberius. Shorty was surprised to see Tiberius with Gibson instead of Maxine. That's her, Pirate Lord Corey, really? She is scary as fuck. Who is that crippled old man and the guy behind her? Shush, she might hear you. Keep your mouth shut. Don't you know she can kill you with a single look? She is a witch, the pirates began to murmur. Most of them were shocked to see Corey because she was seldom seen outside of her island. Even Black Mane made more appearances to the pirates than her. Hence, when she came to Aden, the pirates were astonished. Moreover, she arrived with only 4 ships rather than with a small fleet. The pirates followed Corey and the men at a safe distance. Most were curious to see the purpose of Corey's visit while some just blindly followed the others. Shorty followed the men to the west side of the island where Pirate Lord Blackmane resided with a couple of his pirate captains. At the moment, Pirate Lord Blackmane went somewhere else taking a small fleet with him, and the one who was staying in Blackmane's castle was another Pirate Lord Vance. The castle was not as majestic as the castles on other continents. It was rather a rundown castle with 5 slim, square towers scattered in a seemingly random pattern. They had been built for an ideal defense and were connected by fortified, heavy walls made of basalt. Their many holes and remnants of siege battle could be seen in the walls. Wide windows were scattered generously around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with same-sized holes for archers and artillery. Several minutes later, they finally reached the castle gates and were greeted by a red-haired lady with 2 rapiers hanging on either side of her slender waist and a bold man in tattered golden robes at the gates. Full_out current_novel on L World. COM Pirate Lord Corey, what a pleasant surprise, the red-haired lady spoke in a seductive tone. Pirate Lord Vance is eagerly waiting for you inside. The man on the other hand spoke in a rather cold tone, but Corey ignored both of their greetings and strode into the castle to spread the name of their new lord. Chapter 459 Become Lord Lucifer's Pirate Lord. After they entered the castle grounds, Gibson noticed barrels of rum, hay dummies, and cannons being repaired by pirates. Unlike outside the castle gates, the pirates inside were doing some kind of chores instead of being drunk and lying on the sandy ground. There were at least 50 archers atop the castle walls, all glancing at them. If they were to make a single wrong move, hundreds of arrows would riddle their bodies in a blink of an eye. Even if the archers had bad aim, they had the advantage of height. In addition to the archers, several groups of pirates sat in groups around campfires. These groups were the pirate version of patrolling soldiers. While Gibson was counting the pirates, Tiberius looked at the holes and remnants of cannon blasts in the castle walls. He could guess how many siege battles these castle walls must have gone through before submitting to the pirates. In Tiberius' mind, the pirates were wasting the island's potential by just treating it as their one super big tavern. There was no law, order, or even basic hygiene. He remembered Lucifer saying if these pirates were left ungoverned, they would not only be a threat to others but also to themselves. He could now agree with Lucifer's statement. He wondered why the Royal Navy of Ar didn't bombard this island and deal with the pirate threat. Why didn't we see any of Blackman's fleet on the sea? Asked Tiberius. The pirates were not fond of a strict hierarchy and calling others my lords. They considered themselves freemen, so even the pirate lord could be called by his name without any titles. Pirates hated these noble titles. Most of them hardcore pirates like Blackmane believed respect is earned through power and riches, not by titles. The only titles they allowed were captain and pirate lord. But the title captain gave no immunity to the captain as the title king would. If the crew became unhappy with their captain, they would throw the captain off the board or hang him or her in a heartbeat. The same was true for the pirate lord too, but there was never been an incident where the crew mutinied against a pirate lord before. What? You want to test us? The bold guy in golden robes snickered. Don't mind my friend here, he's being a bitch because his ship is under repair and couldn't go plunder as he wants. The female pirate chuckled to calm both of these men before either of them started a fight. We don't usually anchor our fleet in Aden, friend. As they say, don't put all your eggs into one basket. Tiberius agreed with the pirate woman as they walked past several pirates rolling barrels after barrels into a cabin. Just the smell permeating from those barrels was enough to make their taste buds savor the sweetness of the rum within. So Vance is still plundering only the ships that carry rum? Pirate Lord Corey asked the red-haired pirate. Of course. Isn't that genius Pirate Lord Corey? We hit ships with gold, sugar, gems, and all that will turn into gold coins and go straight to buy rum. Why go through all that trouble when you can directly take what you really want? The latest _sodies are on the L-World.com website. It shouldn't make sense, but it does. Corey chuckled at first. Tiberius thought it stupid to plunder only the ships that carry rum shipments, but after meeting the pirates, it sounded way less stupid to him. If anything, this was a stroke of genius because most Navy ships carried gold, gems, ores, sugar, and weapon shipments. Plundering those ships was not only risky but would also make them a threat to a kingdom or worse, a threat to the Ar Empire. Rum, however, carried by merchant ships, and plundering merchant ships was like taking candy from a baby compared to plundering a Navy ship. Besides, like the red-haired pirate said, even if the pirates plundered tons of gold, their earnings would eventually be used to buy rum and whores. By directly plundering rum and the valuables from the merchant ships, they could easily get both without any hassle. Eventually, after passing several more rum warehouses, they climbed a set of gray stone stairs to step onto the throne hall, which had been turned into a lavish tavern. Several long oak tables were placed from the bar counter to the end of the hall. As expected, the primary clientele of the tavern was pirates, and the maids were ladies who generously revealed their deep cleavage to their customers. Of course, some outright seemed uncomfortable putting up with all the butt slapping and hand-grabbing. Tiberius' nose twitched due to the stench of piss, vomit, and rum. Despite the stench, the tavern itself was packed and lively thanks to the singing and dancing. I have to give it to them, they are one happy bunch, Tiberius thought in his mind. Building a country for the freedom fighters and managing it was harder than he had imagined. Some days he would prefer to fight in the arena than to go through the necessities they want and the gold coins they have. The task of being a ruler was stressing him, and Maxine suggested he take a rest and spend his time in Old Bertha. Live a pirate life, that what she said to him. Living with them helped him more than he liked to admit. He had no worries, no responsibilities. He just trained, sailed the seas, singing with the crew, and drank and ate as hearty as he wanted. Being a pirate was fun, except the world was changing, and if the pirates didn't change with it, only extinction awaited them. Hey Melina, you want a drink? A bearded old man raised his mug and shouted at the red-haired pirate as they were making their way to the stairs behind the bar counter. Join you later, the red-haired pirate waved at the old man. Meanwhile, some pirates noticed the tattoo-covered Corey and recognized her. Tiberius and Gibson could hear various chatter focused on Corey. None of them dared to raise their voice or approach Corey because of her infamous reputation as a witch. Melina and the bold man knocked on the door after climbing the stairs leading to the second floor. This content is taken from L-World.com. Come in. Melina opened the room to be welcomed by a man sitting behind a large oak table with several maps and rum bottles. He had a pair of dark brown eyes, a tanned complexion, straight black hair hanging over his broad shoulders and a stubble beard. Currently, he was sitting on a chair and drinking with his feet atop the table. A long greatcoat was hanging on the stand near the table and he was in a dark shirt revealing his chiseled chest and matching gray leather trousers. He also wore a stud earring on both ears as well as a scar that ran across his left cheek. What a fucking surprise. Pirate Lord Corey, here in Aden outside of Witch Island, just like his look, his thick voice too had a flair of cruelty to it. Go entertain yourselves. Gibson dismissed the crew by sending them to the tavern below with a pouch of gold coins. After the crew left the room, the bold man closed the door as Corey took the chair in front of the table while Tiberius and Gibson sat on the chairs behind Corey. They let Pirate Lord Corey lead the negotiation as they planned. What can I say? Times are changing, Vance, Corey calmly said. I assume your sudden visit to Aden is not to enjoy our hospitality? Not entirely true. I heard you can't find a finer rum anywhere else. Horse 2. Vance grabbed Melina's hands before pulling her closer to him. She sat on the chair's arm, seductively laughing. I heard things too, Corey. Things like the legendary Silent Reaper resurface, one of your pirate captains leaving your side to join another crew, and my favorite. Vance paused for a second and went on, magic-wielding captain. If I was not too drunk, I heard he's called Lucifer. Lord Lucifer, Corey corrected Vance, and when Vance saw the look on Corey's face he was surprised. Initially, he didn't believe such a rumor that someone was using magic inside the Void Line. To this day he couldn't believe Corey was able to use magic. Imagine his surprise when his crew told him that the captain of the black ship could cast spells and use magic. Did I hear you right? Melina, did she say Lord? Because I heard she say Lord, Vance asked Melina. Yes, she did, full underscore, Avalon L world. So when you said times are changing, you meant you became someone else's bitch? Gibson quickly pressed Tiberius' feet with his fake leg to stop him from lunging at Vance. Like it or not, they were in a pirate fortress without Lord Lucifer or the Dark Queen. Old Bertha could give a hell of a fight, but she wouldn't be able to survive if all the pirate ships and defenses around Aden bombarded them. Being a bitch is better than being dead, Vance. You have to be alive to enjoy the pirate life. Corey smiled, but behind that smile, one could see the hidden menacing look. If I don't know any better, I would consider that as a threat. Vance's voice became colder. What I'm here to offer you is an opportunity of a lifetime. Vance. Corey leaned forward, getting richer and stronger without making an enemy out of the kingdoms and how does this sound, Vance? Let's just assume I'm interested in such an opportunity. What's the catch gonna be? Vance did not seem to be interested at all. Instead of looking at Corey while he was speaking, he was playing with Melina. Tiberius' eyes twitched. He knew by looking at Vance's attitude and the way he talked, that this negotiation was destined to fail. Join Lord Lucifer's ranks as his pirate lord. The moment Corey spoke these words, Vance stopped playing with Melina's lips. He turned his gaze to Corey and those pair of eyes were flowing with murder. In other words, you want me? Vance stood up. A bitch? He banged the table as the rum bottles on the table blasted away. Despite Vance's outburst, Corey was still calm. Visit L World. COM for a better reading experience. What if I say Lord Lucifer can grant us immortality? Melina and the bold man who listened to Corey were startled. Vance wasn't interested in riches and power like many others in this world. He would rather live his life plundering rum and drinking than capitalize on a golden opportunity. There was nothing much Corey could offer that would tempt him except immortality. Chapter 460. The Almighty Sunrise Sect. That shit doesn't work for us. Your sales pitch would have worked on those freaks who call themselves cultivators. Vance snickered. Corey sighed. It seems like you need a demonstration. Vance saw Corey close her eyes. Subconsciously he took a step back from the table. Corey felt the crystal pendant on her neck warming up. The warmth slowly spread through every being in her body. Crystal dagger. She opened her eyes abruptly, raising her hand at Vance. Melina and the bald man immediately jumped in front of Vance to defend, though they were too late. They only felt a gush of wind blow past their faces. Fuck. Vance stumbled back as a blue dagger floated in the air just an inch away from right between his eyes. He shuddered and without his control, he started to sweat under his shirt. Melina and the bald man's faces lost all color and became pale. Melina's hands on her rapier were shaking. This had heard about cultivators casting spells and using magic, but this was the first time they had witnessed it in real life. They couldn't stop themselves from shivering. The dagger was still hovering in the air, radiating a chilling aura. Arg fuck, Vance growled when he tried to grab the dagger. The dagger's cold surface burned his palm. This is just a taste of power Lord Lucifer blessed me with Vance. In front of him, we are powerless and insignificant as ants. Imagine the possibilities of having such powers, Vance. We can be much more than pirate lords. Corey put her hand down as the dagger vanished into thin air. Only now Vance could let out a heavy breath. He just stared death in its eyes and survived to tell the tale. His mind was slowly digesting the fact of how insignificant and powerless he was, just as she said. If Corey wanted, she could have simply killed him and the two pirate captains in a blink of an eye without making any fuss. They could have walked out of the island simply, as by the time the drunken pirates noticed their bodies, they would have been long gone. Still, every fiber in his body screamed against him at the thought of serving someone else other than himself. He felt as if he was being forced to bend his knees. He preferred to die on his feet than to live on his knees like a true pirate. You have 2 weeks to give us your answer, Vance. Corey stood up to leave. Nunder, Sir published on Overlord. Sidom, what if I didn't? Vance's question stopped her on her way to the door. Nothing. Corey didn't even turn back. If you can't grab an opportunity when it slaps you on the face, you're not the pirate I thought you are. Tiberius followed Corey and Gibson behind, leaving the pirates stunned. He couldn't help chuckling, noticing the fear in their eyes. Pirate Lord Corey, is it okay to leave them? You know, they might blabber, Gibson asked as they were climbing down the stair. They should. Corey smiled. Everything went according to Lord Lucifer's plan. Gibson wasn't surprised by her words, and neither was Tiberius. They both knew that Lucifer was as cunning as he was powerful. Those pirates should be grateful they didn't come here, Tiberius calmly said. The they he meant were Lucifer and Dark Queen. I've yet to see someone live after saying no to him. The trio left Aiden after staying for a day. Shorty handed over all the information he gathered in Aiden to Gibson, which was then transferred to Maxine. Old Bertha started her voyage searching for Black Mane, the last pirate lord. The Broad River sect of Kingdom Kethan was a beautiful castle surrounded by majestic gardens and fountains magically created out of the crystal blue lake surrounding the sect. The sect looked very impressive despite having stood for over 500 years. Many buildings were being built and the existing buildings were getting repaired. The major construction work was on the main castle. It was believed that the magnificent fountain in the middle of the sect's park had healing and beautifying properties. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here Elworld. Seat OM. The sect had an average reputation under the previous sect leader Matthias. However, the new sect leader Ella raised the reputation of the sect to one of the best in Kethan after merging the Broad River sect with the famous Sunrise sect of River Town. Many nobles in Kethan and the fellow sects tried to destroy the Broad River sect by fanning the flames between Ella and Matthias during the inner conflict. However, the civil war soon came to an end when the majority of the students and elders sided with Ella to merge with the Sunrise sect, and Matthias was burnt to death by the bandits. The sect was still investigating Matthias' death to apprehend the bandits who killed him, except many believed it was Ella who killed Matthias with the help of Ghost, the rising star of River Town, who now held the title of king on top of many. The name Sunrise sect was hanging on the gateway instead of their previous name Broad River sect. They engraved the golden words on black metal. At the moment, Ella was going through a stack of documents located on a long oak table in a spacious room with many windows and many portraits of the previous sect leaders. The portrait of Ella's family, a bearded man and a black-haired lady in a red dress, hung behind Ella. There were some delicate silver instruments puffing smoke and whirring on a table next to the big oak table. One could also see several book racks filled with ancient books and parchments. All of them were illuminated by the majestic chandelier right above the crimson-red rug. Any visitors could rest on the comfy black couches given to her by Claire as a gift. In addition to the couches, there was a wooden throne-like chair located just before the oak table for having official talks. Unlike before, Ella did not wear a dark cloak covering herself. Thanks to Ghost's potions and cream, her burnt skin recovered its natural glow. Her skin now glowed like jade, so she wore colorful clothes that expressed her joy rather than gloomy dark robes. Despite her 40-plus age, she looked as though she was still in her late teens. She had already started to receive many proposals only to get rejected by her one after another. She was rejecting not because she had no plans to get married, but rather because she was waiting for the right man. Knock, knock, knock. While she was reading all the income and expenses reports of the sect, someone knocked on the door. Headmistress, come in, Ella said, and put down the report to take a break. A young female disciple dressed in a long black coat with red linings walked into the room carrying a cup and saucer. This content is taken from Elworld. Xiom, Headmistress, hey, race your tea. The young girl brightly smiled at Ella and placed the tray on the table. And Headmistress, Sect Leader Olivier has arrived and is on his way to meet you. Ella took a sip of tea and felt a surge of sweet aromatic energy exploding in every fiber in her body. The exhaustion of reading through the report evaporated along with the smoke coming out of the tea. She took a deep breath as the tasting buds in her tongue had a small party. Headmistress, the young girl chuckled silently looking at Ella's expression. Oh yeah, Olivier, good. It's time I had a little chat with him. You can go now, Peggy. The young girl bowed, and when the girl reached the door, Ella stopped her. Peggy, Hades is reopening today. Tell Master Ricky to book a table for 2-inch. Just by thinking of Hades, Ella's mouth started drooling. To be honest, she could not wait to finish the meeting with Olivier and stuff her belly with as much food as she could. It had been too long since she tasted Raylene's cooking. She was glad to be in the close circle of Ghost. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to get a table in Hades whenever she wanted. Even the Princess of Royal Land and her friends had to book a table 2 weeks earlier. As you wish, Headmistress. After the girl left the room, Ella continued to enjoy every sip of tea. She felt the 1,000 she spent on getting a flask of Raylene's tea was totally worth it. Each and every sip was sweet, mind-boggling goodness that soothed her from within. Only she hated the feeling of the bottom of the cup. Headmistress is waiting for you, my lord. Ella heard the guards outside speaking to someone, and shortly after she saw Olivier, a bald old man with a bushy white beard, strolling into the room. The old man looked to be in his late 70s and wore plain white robes. He looked to be in his late 70s while his real age ranged between 100 to 150. Ella noticed the dark circles under his eyes. Everyone in the sect leader's circle knew the man was struggling to break through to the core strengthening stage. He was stuck on the core formation level 10 for more than 10, and even Ghost revitalizing pills or cultivation enhancers could not break his bottleneck. That didn't mean Ghost was unable to help Olivier with his bottleneck. In fact, he left a crate of special potions just for people who were suffering from cultivation bottlenecks. A potion from that crate was Ella's major bargaining chip with the negotiation she is about to have with Olivier. Visit L World. So for a better reading experience, thank you for coming to meet me, Sect Leader Olivier. Please take a seat. Ella gestured at Olivier to take a seat. Regardless, the current Broad River sect was much more prominent than Oliver's White Cloud sect, and in fact, the two sects shouldn't be compared, as the current Broad River sect had become a mammoth in Kethen. That was why Olivier came all the way from his sect to meet Ella when she summoned him. Offending Ella would be like offending the Sunrise sect. Nowadays, they had the same influence and power to be equal to the 3 big sects themselves. How would you like to join our Sunrise sect, Sect Leader Olivier? Chapter 461 Takeovers. Elon and Azair were yet to recover from the Hydra's outcry. Apart from a few devices invented by the Guardian Guild, there was no way to gauge someone's cultivation level as they had been doing forever. Nonetheless, Ella needed no device to tell Olivier was still at the core formation stage. The dark circles under his eyes and the collarbones building out were enough. Come again, Sect Leader Ella. Olivier frowned. He could swear that he heard her asking him to join her sect. Drop the formalities, Olivier. Call me Ella. Ella giggled, waving her hand. Olivier was still staring at her without batting an eye as she continued. Rumors claiming you're looking for a new successor to inherit your position as sect leader. Any truth to those rumors? Oliver carried the torch of sect leader of the White Cloud sect for nearly 60 years. Until 2 decades ago, the density of arch energy was extremely low in the world. Thus, the majority of the cultivators born before that time could not reach high stages of cultivation like the youngsters nowadays. So reaching the core formation stage 60 years ago was a pretty big deal. Olivier was considered a prodigy and inherited the sect leader position from his predecessor. The stress of being a sect leader had slowed down his cultivation speed. It took him 40 years to reach level 10 of the core formation stage from level 1, and he spent millions in gold coins buying rare potions and items. Thanks to Ghost and his potions, he was able to cultivate much faster than he used to. Still, it was not enough to make him break through to the core strengthening stage. Since many of his friends advised him to leave his stressful sect leader position, he was looking for a new successor, except he had been doing it under wraps. How the hell did Ella know about this was beyond Olivier. However, rather than focusing on how, Olivier just sighed. Matter of fact, I am looking for someone to take over the sect after I enter seclusion. Something told Ella that it might be his last seclusion. Many cultivators who were suffering bottlenecks would go to the Lonely Mountains as a last attempt to break through to the next stage. The Lonely Mountain was an uninhabitable place where extreme yang and yin energy were always colliding with each other. Due to these two extreme energies, the place only had 2 climates, freezing cold and burning hot. 9 out of 10 cultivators would die trying to break their bottlenecks. If a cultivator could absorb and survive the yin and yang energies, it would break the bottleneck. Venturing into the lonely mountain was the last resort for any cultivator. I've been following your sect closely, Olivier. You have certainly done a good job keeping the sect from declining. But your sect has so much potential, it could go beyond and further. Surprisingly, Olivier gently smiled, shaking his head slowly. Ella, I lived long enough to know what you're trying to do. You want my sect to be merged with the Sunrise sect. You literally said that. I've been doing what's right for my sect ever since I became the sect leader. Give me one reason why I should agree to this merger? She would be lying if she said she wasn't pleasantly surprised by Oliver's directness. Wearing a smile on her face, Ella waved her hand as a glistening emerald green potion bottled inside a palm-sized vial appeared on the table. This is my reason. 1-inch Olivier did not recognize the potion, but he sensed a great amount of energy coming from the vial. Before handing over the potion to Olivier, she grabbed a golden parchment and slid it toward Olivier. And this is reason number 2. Go on, open and take a look. Olivier untied the red ribbon to read the contents inside, and the moment he laid his eyes on what was written, he was taken aback by surprise. The parchment contained all the financial information about the Broad River sect for the last 5 years. No sect leader would reveal this to another one, especially another sect leader. In addition to the financial side of things, the parchment also contained the cultivation status of a number of disciples and elders. You put your soul and body into your sect, Olivier. It's your baby, so it's no lie that major change such as a merger would greatly concern you. What you're holding in your hands is to reassure you that if you agree to this merger, it will be in the sect's best interest. Ella paused for a moment and continued. Before we merged the Sunrise sect and became a part of them, it would be nothing but a miracle to see us disciple break through to the core formation stage before the age of 30. But now, once a month, we get a new core formation stage disciple. Each student now has their own cultivation space and they get free potions and pills, made by Ghost himself. Even the disciples of the 3 big sects don't have such an advantage. It was shocking, but Olivier agreed with Ella in his mind. He also did his research about her and the sect just as she did. No sect would give their disciples potions and pills every month, let alone for free. It was crazy even to think that they had been giving potions and pills made by the 5-star alchemist for free as though they were candies. His disciples and even the elders had to wait in the line for a day to get their hands on the potions and pills made by the Ghost, yet the Broad River sect disciples were getting them for free every month. If it wasn't for the rule that a disciple would get only 1 potion and pill of each kind, the students of the Sunrise sect and Broad River sect would have made a ton of money by selling them on the side. The demand for Ghost's products was going through the roof. And if I'm right, you are planning to go to the Lonely Mountain for seclusion. You don't have to if I can help you. Ella slid the potion towards Olivier. Have you heard the news that Ghost could reach 90% purity? Visit Reatal.me for extra chapters. Olivier nodded. Following the events that happened in Hades, every newspaper including the royal newspaper had printed Ghost's ability to reach 90% purity in alchemy products he made and his admission to Mazeroth on their front page. At that time the news spread throughout the continent like wildfire. Not a single soul was unaware of this. That's a 90% pure potion brewed by Ghost himself. And you can't get this particular potion anywhere, it's one of the special potions brewed by him, especially for cultivators such as you. Oliver's hands trembled while holding the potion in his hand. In 1 month, you will be able to break through to the core strengthening stage if you take this potion. You are welcome to take this potion with you and appraise it for yourself. No cultivator would blindly drink an unknown potion no matter how pure it was. What if it was poison instead of a miraculous potion? They would first appraise the potions using a trusted alchemist of their own before taking them. Although no alchemist who was qualified enough to appraise Michael's potions existed in Elon, one could find if it was poison or not, unless of course Michael didn't want them to find it. Despite Olivier knowing she was being so generous and trusting to complete the merger, he still appreciated her gestures. What if I said no to the merger? Do I have to give this back? Of course not. Ella waved her hand with a smile. Whether you accept it or not, this potion is yours unless you don't want it. Oliver's hand clutched the potion tighter. His heart told him to let go, but his brain screamed at him to hold on to the potion. If what Ella said was true, it finally could bring his suffering to an end and make him reach the core strengthening stage. As I said, your sect is your child and every parent would want what's best for their child. Don't think that if you agree to the merger you will be sacked. you will still be the head of your sect who makes all the major decisions. Only your title would change from sect leader to headmaster. Olivier took a deep breath. I've served my sect long enough, Ella. It's time for me to step down and a young one to take over the sect. Ella's eyes twitched after she heard him. She refused to believe after everything she offered to convince him the old coot wasn't agreeing to the merger. Luckily what she heard next put a smile on her face. However, I will take a week's time and think about this merger. It's a big decision nonetheless. I will make one last decision that might lead my sect into a golden age before I leave my position. Olivier shook Ella's hands and left the room with the potion. It was a sign that he would get the sect's affairs in order before agreeing to the merger. 2 sects down, 3 more to go, Ella grinned. The Sunrise sect took over not 1 but 3 sects in total, and with Oliver's sect, the number would be 4. Ella was leading the takeovers in front. She was a ruthless negotiator and a leader. That was why Michael chose her to take over the sect instead of Claire. Not to be mistaken, Claire was a great leader, but she was not as ruthless as Ella. For instance, if Olivier chose not to accept the merger, Claire would have accepted his choice. On the other hand, Ella would have incited a civil war inside his sect first, and then she would have killed him and replaced him with someone who would do her bidding. Just as Lucifer's influence was expanding throughout the southern continent, Ghost's power slowly grew in Elon through the Sunrise sect. The 3 big sects had already noticed the power scale changing in the continent, and sooner or later, one of them would make a move to stop the Sunrise sect from swallowing the small sects and become one major power that could rival them in every aspect. No offense, but you don't seem like the friendly helping professor type. You might only be someone worthy of my teachings, Professor Lane simply said. Since Michael had a plan of his own, he did not poke Lane any further. Meanwhile, in their room, Victoria and Edith placed the glass orb that enabled communication from the Ukulun realm to Thusia. Victoria placed her hand on the orb and sent a sliver of cosmic energy as the glass orb immediately began to glow brighter and brighter. Victoria and Edith took several steps back. Soon, 2 figures in ethereal form appeared above the orb. The man was in a crimson-red robe that draped the floor beneath him. He had striking crimson-red hair dancing over his shoulder, blue eyes, and a thick beard without a mustache. His muscles were bulging out of his crimson-red robes. The man possessed an aura of an emperor, and not of a kind, benevolent emperor. Rather, he seemed cold, iron-fisted, and powerful as a god. The woman who remained by his side had golden hair, a gentle smile on her face, as well as a pair of glistening hazel eyes. Her perfect structure was covered by a long gown usually made of a luxurious tunic and contained embroidered lace and gems. Father, Mother, Victoria immediately dropped to one knee and bowed her head. Your Majesty, Your Highness, Edith curtsied them with a royal bow instead of kneeling down like Victoria. They were the King and Queen of Thusia, Maxim Barnes and Valeria Barnes. Valeria looked at Victoria with a kind look, and she was about to speak when a cold voice reverberated in the room. Unacceptable. Maxim Barnes' voice conveyed authority. The voice emanated from his 6'6" stature commands attention. It was unmistakable. At its most pronounced, it felt like a whip against dewy skin. You have failed to secure the primordial flames. What have you learned from your failure, Victoria? Raise your head and answer. Victoria shuddered like a child in front of him. The primordial flames indeed have a mind of their own, Father. They refuse to submit to the cosmic energy, and one of them has chosen a new master. One of them? Frowned Maxim Barnes. Yes, Father, there were 2 primordial flames. Fool. King Maxim raised his voice. He was furious. Along with his shout, a powerful blast shot out of his ethereal figure and blasted Victoria onto the wall behind her. Vicky. Edith was stunned, but she quickly ran to Victoria. No, Victoria refused to take Edith's hands and picked herself from the ground without any help. Knowing about her husband's anger, Valeria remained silent. She did not even try to calm him down because she knew it would only make him madder. Victoria ignored the blood slowly trickling through her nostrils and knelt before him just like before. Only the 3 primordial flames can stop the cosmic energy. What does that mean? Asked Maxim Barnes. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Our enemies can use the primordial flames against us, Victoria immediately answered Maxim without even taking a second to breathe. They will use the flames against us. That is why we must secure them for ourselves before our foes. Each failure teaches us a lesson. Learn from your failures. Yes, sir. Victoria placed her hand on her chest and declared, Have you found someone worthy of you in Mazeroth? asked Maxim. No, father, she shook her head. Maxim looked at Victoria for a moment and then disappeared, leaving Valeria with the two girls. Edith finally let out a deep breath and felt her muscles loosen up. Rise, my daughter, Valeria's gentle voice swept over Victoria. There was nothing but love and kindness in her eyes. She looked and acted like the embodiment of compassion. Victoria stood up, revealing a delicate smile. Your father and I have picked two young men who might be worthy to take your hands in marriage, Victoria. If you have no one in your heart, you can select either of them and you won't be disappointed. Mother, Victoria growled. I don't want to get married. No, no dear, marriage is important. To you and to our kingdom. Your father has given you the freedom to pick a groom for yourself. He has been very patient in this matter, but you know about your father, he is not a patient man. Victoria could only sigh. To be honest, she did not want to marry, but she was unable to disagree with her father too. She had been telling them she will find a man who is worthy of her, yet she barely even tried to. But how could I marry someone I don't even know? Every man I met till now is weaker and inferior to me in every aspect. I married your father without knowing him, honey, and that's the best decision I've ever made. You can't keep avoiding this matter, saying they are weak and inferior to you. No one can or will be stronger than you, Victoria. You have the cosmic energy running in your veins. I think the young men we found might be the best fit for you. They are stronger than you, but they are not weak either. If they had cosmic energy, I have no doubt they will be just as strong as you or stronger. Victoria was momentarily stunned by the last few words that came out of her mother's mouth. She creased her brows, refusing to believe that not one but two men existed who could be stronger than her. Granted, she had cosmic energy, but even before absorbing cosmic energy, her cultivation speed and the purity of the energy in her body shook the entire Azer continent. She was deemed a once-in-lifetime prodigy, and many even compared her to the Hunt family prodigy. Who are they? Edith's curiosity got the better of her. Both of them hail from the Elon continent. One of them is a guardian. Our contacts in the Guardian Guild have informed us he is a rising star with unlimited potential. They believe he has reached core formation stage level 10 recently. As Queen Valeria was describing the candidate, Edith's heart started to beat faster and faster. It felt as if her heart was pounding against her chest. He is kind, forgiving, and talented in both alchemy and combat. General Booth has accessed the battles he went through and said he could fight with him toe-to-toe and might even defeat him in a duel. Valeria intentionally teased Victoria without revealing the identity of the young man. She kindled the fire of curiosity within Victoria and rubbed her ego to the point Victoria would travel to Elon to meet both young men and pick one to be her life partner. Who does this remind you of? Valeria chuckled. You, said Victoria. When someone wanted to describe Valeria with few words as possible, they would say the exact thing Valeria said about the young man: kind, forgiving, and talented in both alchemy and combat. Valeria failed to notice a tear rolling out of Edith's eyes. Do you want to know his name? Valeria teased Victoria. The young girl nodded her head wordlessly, telling her mother to stop teasing her and reveal his name. Noah Winston. Edith's tears hit the ground as soon as Valeria uttered the name of the man whom Edith was in love with. Chapter 463. Victoria chooses her groom. Not only Edith but also Victoria was stunned to hear the name Noah Winston. Victoria was caught off guard as she did not think the young man her mother was talking about could be the same guy Edith is in love with. Her eyes automatically turned to look at Edith and saw the tears gushing out of her eyes. Victoria waved her hand, sending a sliver of cosmic energy to the orb. Right after the cosmic energy reached the orb, Valeria's figure vanished into thin air and the orb lost its glow. As soon as Valeria disappeared, Edith collapsed down. She closed her face with her hands and started to cry. Edith, Victoria knelt beside her best friend, wrapped her arms around her shoulder and pulled her close to her. I don't know what to do, Edith sobbed as her voice stuttered. Hey, you don't have to do anything. Stop crying, Victoria tried to console her. She wasn't in her usual cold self. How could she when her best friend was crying for the first time in many years? Edith sobbed continuously for 15 minutes, and no matter what Victoria tried to say or do, she could not stop Edith from crying. It's okay. Edith opened her hands, revealing puffy red eyes and a pale face. She quickly wiped off the tears and tried to let out a smile. I'm used to not having things I love. You can have him, he will take good care of you, he's really a good guy. Surprisingly, Victoria slapped the back of Edith's head. You dumb silly, who said I'm going to choose Noah? No offense, but I'm not going to share my husband with you or anyone. Looking at Edith's dumbstruck face, Victoria sighed before smiling. Mother said 2 candidates, idiot. If I have to choose one, I will choose the other one. I bet mine is better than yours, she joked to make Edith truly smile again instead of the fake one on her face at the moment. But if Victoria closer her lips with her hands, if I agree to marry someone else, I don't have to marry your lover boy. Edith was saying something, but due to Victoria's hand on her mouth, her words became inaudible. Victoria removed her hand as Edith stared at her with watering eyes. You would do that for me? Once again Victoria slapped Edith on the head. Idiot, I would do anything for you. Don't you know? Before Victoria could finish her sentence, Edith leaped at her, hugged her and squeezed Victoria. How dare you think I will join his harem, huh? Victoria asked playfully. He said he will treat all of us equally. If you enter the harem, it's goodbye equality. You will kick us out, Edith purred. That does sound like me, Victoria chuckled as the two girls remained in each other's embrace for a couple of minutes. She expressed her feelings about him to Maxim, but as a ruthless king, he was leaning toward the second one rather than choosing Noah. The ultimate decision of choosing the future king of Wuxia fell to Victoria. Whatever decision her daughter would make, she would wholeheartedly agree and support her, although she would be over the moon if she was to choose Noah. Do you know the leader of our alchemy guild, the one Calvin chose? Valeria asked as Victoria began to recall everything released to the alchemy guild. She was in seclusion when they formed an alchemy guild of their own. Everything related to talent recruitment had been taken care of by Calvin, and because he was competent, Maxim rarely micromanaged Calvin. Besides, they were at war with several kingdoms, so they had no time to access every talent brought by Calvin. Nonetheless, Victoria did hear Calvin talk about recruiting a 5-star alchemist as their guild leader and planned to topple the alchemist guild. He goes by the name Ghost. Apparently, he was also chosen by Mazroth at the same time as you 2-inch. The moment Valeria said this, the images of the youngster Victoria met in the Black Forest flashed across her mind. That's him, Victoria mumbled under her breath. Everything made perfect sense to Victoria and her instincts told her the same. Auntie, I think we've met him already, Edith sighed. Just like Victoria, she connected the dots and guessed her train neighbor and Ghost may be the same person. Edith began to tell what happened in the Black Forest and how the alchemy student mercilessly beat down the warriors to Valeria. That does sound like him. After knowing what he did to the Princess of Bredia and the fellow competitors during the tournament, Valeria wasn't surprised by what Edith told her. As far as she was concerned, the warrior students were lucky they met him in Mazroth instead of in Elon, where Ghost would have slaughtered them like cattle. Since you didn't find one yourself, these two are the choices you have, dear. I would choose Valeria tried to persuade Victoria to choose Noah, only to get interrupted by Victoria. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that Valeria preferred Noah over Ghost, and Victoria could read her mother like a book. At first, Victoria only wanted to choose the other one instead of Noah because of Edith. But after hearing everything about Ghost, she really felt like he might be the man she hoped to be her life partner. I will meet Ghost. Valeria was disappointed deep down, but still, she was happy that at least Victoria agreed to meet him. After I finish my studies in Mazroth and hopefully find the primordial flame, I can meet him. Both mother and daughter failed to consider Ghost's opinion on the matter, even after knowing that he already rejected marrying a princess. And last time a king thought about marrying his daughter to him, he ended up not only losing a huge chunk of his kingdom but also almost his daughter. Chapter 464. Picking up a fight. The warriors' common room was located in the dungeon a couple of floors beneath the combat classroom. It was a long, low underground room with rough stone walls and ceiling, from which round, reddish lamps were hanging on chains, giving the light in the room a red and silver tinge. A fire was crackling under an elaborately carved mantelpiece ahead of them, and several figures were silhouetted around it in carved chairs. The common room had lots of low-backed black and dark red button-tufted, leather sofas, skulls and dark wood cupboards. One of the wooden tables had a few daggers and scrolls on it. The walls were decorated with tapestries featuring the adventures of famous warriors ever to live. It had quite a grand atmosphere but also quite a cold one. Currently, 5 students were occupying the sofas set in the middle of the room and discussing something. One of the 3 men sitting on the sofa was Elliot Watson, the head prefect of Mazroth and the man who got Gaia fired. He was not in his silver armor and carrying the heavy sword. He was wearing a linen black full-sleeve shirt, black trousers and a pair of silver boots. On the opposite side of Elliot, on a couple's sofa, Elliot's best friends and also lovers, Deacon Saunders and Bethany White, were cuddling. Deacon flaunted his chiseled muscular upper body and his raven black long hair. The calluses and veins bulging out of his tan skin were common among the blacksmiths like him. Bethany White had striking red hair, an oval face and shining blue eyes. She was Deacon's fiancée and also a 4-star runemaster as well as the heiress to the powerful White family in the Azer continent. While Deacon and Bethany were entangled in cuddling and smooching, a blonde girl in a loosely tied ponytail was making tea for everyone in the room. She would remind someone of Alicia as the girl looked cold, unsympathetic and not at all friendly. The fifth person in the room was Diego Carter, a messy purple-haired young man wearing skinny black leather trousers and a rainbow-colored sparkling jacket. Out of the 5, he was the only one standing in the corner of the room, watching them with a tinge of jealousy painted on his face. His eyes particularly focused on Bethany while his hands were rubbing his crotch. He quickly took his hand off of his crotch when one of his minions entered the room. Oh, the minion was surprised to see the head prefect in the room. Hey, Elliot, the minion stuttered. His eyes were desperately searching for Diego until they landed on Diego. Boss, you have to see what's going on in the training grounds. The minion tried to lower his voice but all of them heard him. What? Diego rolled his eyes. He was quite annoyed by his minion's untimely entrance. There's an alchemist showing off by breaking the dummies. So? Deacon did not like the way he talked to Bethany but before he could say something, Erica interjected. You are overreacting, Diego. Her words were like pouring fuel into the burning fire. And you? Erica's cold gaze landed on the minion. He shuddered to look at her sharp gaze. Get out of here, you've done enough. The minion immediately ran away from the room. Can we go back to what we were doing, baby? Deacon said, kissing her neck. Seeing the girl he loves cuddling and smooching in front of him with the guy he hates the most made Diego's blood pressure soar through the roof. Ever since Deacon and Bethany got engaged, Diego lost it. Elliot knew that Diego was in love with Bethany since they were little. However, Bethany chose Deacon and Diego asked Elliot to break off their engagement only to be denied by Elliot. Not only did Elliot refuse to help Diego but also told him to move on. I will show you overreact, Diego growled before storming out of the room. For Diego, who craved Bethany's attention, anger was the only thing that earned him her attention. Hence, he voluntarily picked up fights with fellow students. Elliot was widely respected by the students of all houses and only because Diego was his friend, many did not complain about his behavior to Headmistress Kayla. Bethany was unable to continue smooching when her friend walked out of the room furiously. She stood up to follow him behind and so did Deacon. After the 3 of them left the room leaving Elliot and Erica behind, she came to his side. How long you're gonna put up with him, Elliot? Asked Erica, putting her hand on Elliot's shoulder. Until he sees the errors in his ways, he said as he walked towards his room to wear his uniform. I don't think it's time sooner, she said with a cold face. Love is a powerful force, Erica. It can bring out the best or worst version of oneself. In Diego's case, it's the latter. Oh boy, you are really good at this. Michael was ripping the arms off a dummy when he saw Gilrine descend from the sky beside him. Michael momentarily paused the training to greet the big man. They are just too weak, Michael calmly said and rubbed the blood on his knuckles on his robes. The latest __sodies are on _the L World. Xenoam website. Gilrine was stunned. Somehow Michael's words didn't look like boasting. After all, Gilrine could see the mountain of dummies lying on the ground nearby. You finished training? For now, I am waiting for someone. Gilrine saw a light grin emerge on his face. He looked around to see only students gawking at him bewildered. The big man noticed several girls staring at him with blushed red faces. He could tell they were undressing him in their minds. Even the elven girls couldn't take their eyes off of him. Strength, power, and skills surpassed the racial thing. The students didn't resume training even after Michael finished his training, at least they thought he finished training.